Well, we actually have some injury updates here that I was not really expecting. So one, Deebo Samuel was at practice this Thursday. If there's a chance Deebo plays, obviously we have to move Brandon Ayuk well down our rankings. Looking at Keenan Allen got in another limited practice this week, so potentially you are going to be moving down Rome Odunze just a bit. Jaylen Warren not expected to play at all, so obviously Najee becomes a must-start guy and a good matchup against the Colts. Jordan Love gets in another limited practice. I still am expecting that Jordan Love is going to be playing this week. Deontay Johnson doesn't practice, but says he's going to be good to go week 4. And Tank Dell unlikely to be playing. So obviously, we bump up Stephon Diggs. You're already starting Nico Collins regardless. But with no Dell, it makes Diggs even more appealing. Bucky Irving doesn't practice on Thursday, but says that he is going to be good to go this Sunday. And yeah, Joe Mixon was actually, we'll wait for the Mixon report to officially come out today, but we'll continue to update y'all with injuries, but we got to submit starting lineups. We got to make some trades. We got to make some moves. So let's head over to flockfantasy.com and let's start reviewing some of these teams. This first one's going to be Colin's choice team. Sorry that it took us a day or two to get to this, my guy. For whatever reason, it wasn't initially loading, but going to be excited to check it out at this point. Says, I'm 0-3 now and want to know what we should do with all the injured players and if we should be looking to make any trades. So first thing I want to point out is if we look at this with the league analyzer, we currently are dead in the middle of the league here at 5th. But the gap between the first place team and the 5th place team with the league analyzer is a smaller gap in terms of the power rankings than the 5th place team to the 6th place team. So really, it's the top 5 teams with the vast majority of value. Now, also, this is a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So the wide receiver depth just simply does not matter in this format where we are highly incentivized to have an elite quarterback, potentially have a top end tight end, and obviously the running back depth as well. But to go ahead and pull up this team, there are going to be some adjustments we want to be making. So first off, looking at the quarterback position, we are currently sitting with Kyler Murray. Obviously, Kyler, a QB that's absolutely crushing it, averaging over 50 rushing yards per game. Definitely a play regardless of the matchup. Definitely somebody that we are getting in our lineup every week and you don't need a backup for. Now, going over to Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is my tight end 2 rest of season in my personal rankings. And you know what I just realized? I accidentally moved Kyler up to QB2 as well. So we're going to have to go ahead and we're going to have to update those rankings. I meant to put Kyler Murray at QB2 in my weekly rankings. Looks like I accidentally did it for rest of season. But regardless, yeah, Brock Bowers, definitely a tight end that we can start every single week regardless of his matchup as well. He is currently averaging about 6 targets per game and at the very top of the NFL in total target volume. The issue that you're going to see with Bowers, of course, is just there's not going to be a ton of total passing yards or passing touchdowns for the Raiders. Should be a lower volume offense overall. Now, going over to running back, we currently are sitting with Devon Achane, Jonathan Brooks, Nick Chubb, Ford Cam Akers. So we actually get the positive report coming out about Jonathan Brooks today that it does seem like Jonathan Brooks will be a QB is a running back that's going to be coming back in either week 5 or week 6. And you will have that long-term play at running back too. Obviously, we had Achane as that sell-high candidate last week if you could have gotten Justin Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think, honestly, it probably doesn't make too much sense to go ahead and try to sell Achane at this point with this value tanking, and also with the fact that this is a league where you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex. But having Cam Akers here potentially to fill in for Joe Mixon this week is kind of going to be a lifesaver if we have another week with no Jonathan Brooks. And then hopefully by the time we get to week 5, then Brooks is good to go. Now, going over to what we have with Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, obviously a nice little backfield pairing where before Chubb is back, you have the desperation play of Jerome Ford. Definitely not somebody that I'm super excited about because it's a bad offense, and he will be split in the backfield with Deonta Foreman. But overall, it's an okay running back group. I definitely don't want to act like it's phenomenal. It would be much better once we get these injured players back in. Now, going over to wide receiver. We have Lamb, DJ Moore as players that we can very comfortably start wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 rest of season. Going over to what we have with some of these depth names. Cooper Kupp, better long-term option than short-term. Rome Odunze, better long-term option than short-term. Keon Coleman, better long-term option than short-term. But ultimately, as we sit here with these receivers, it's not like we are completely screwed at wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. These are still guys that you are able to start if we really need to. And I would say that they're very clearly starts over wide receivers like Darnell Mooney and Wan'Dale Robinson. So what I would personally do with this team, where it's a 10-team format where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, where you can always find a receiver like Darnell Mooney or Wan'Dale off the waiver wire. And we are sitting here with a questionable running back room with both Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb both injured. I would actually go ahead and cut the 2 bottom end receivers from this team. I would cut Darnell Mooney. I would cut Wan'Dale Robinson and potentially pick up 2 running backs like Braylon Allen and Emmanuel Wilson. 2 guys that would be locked and loaded must-start players if the guys were to go down in front of them. But outside of that, I honestly don't necessarily think that you need to be selling any of the injured players despite us being 0-3. The reason being is because it's a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So, I mean, reasonably, we can get a decent starting lineup out here in week 4. And then obviously the goal is just to try to survive over the next few weeks until we end up getting back in Cooper Kupp, back in Jonathan Brooks, back in Nick Chubb, and then hopefully some of these rookie receivers continuing to improve like Rome Odunze and Keon Coleman. But yeah, the main thing is I think we just drop the bottom 2 receivers, pick up 2 additional running backs, but I don't necessarily think you need to panic and make any trades here. But what I need to do real quick is I need to head over to the old version of flockfantasy.com and I need to update the rankings that I have. It looks like I accidentally set the weekly rankings to be rest of season. So we need to go through and we need to fix some of these real quick. Obviously, we will comb through all of this stuff a little bit more. But those were my weekly rankings. I accidentally set them here for the rest of season. We will move up Hurts and Lamar. We'll move Kyler back. I had Kyler Murray ranked up at QB2 this week, because specifically this week, you're in a spot, of course, where you're going up against Washington. So it is pretty much the best matchup you could possibly ask for. But yeah, again, thank you, Colin. Really do appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out here in some way. And of course, everybody in the chat, if you don't know, we are answering questions every single day through flockfantasy.com. If you wanted to, you can always get a start sit question, trade question, a full-blown roster review. Definitely, if you wanted a full-blown roster review, the cheapest way to do so, like you can see that Colin got his for free here, is by taking advantage of the offer that we have over on Underdog Fantasy, where if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, you will actually get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, you'll be getting an additional free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard, and another additional pick. It depends on when you sign up. It's either going to be the Dak Prescott, more than less than half a total yard if you sign up before tonight. If you sign up after tonight's game, instead, you would get a Lamar Jackson, more than less than half a total yard for Sunday. But regardless, you'll get 2 free picks and one of those free team reviews over there on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure that you use promo code FLOCK with the link in the description, live chat, comment section, and make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your Underdog Fantasy account. That way I can accredit you with the free team review. But let's move this over to Zhang. This team is hashtag PayChase. Says, hey, Mason, love the content. Anything you'd recommend to make the team better? So currently, this is the number 1 team in this league. It is a 12-team format, start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So it's not a league where waiver wire options are going to be phenomenal, but it will still be a league where the wide receiver depth isn't too important since you can only get 3 of them in. And yeah, we have by far and away the best team here, right? And honestly, I'm really hoping that Chase is good to go for my own squad rest of season. But anyway, this is honestly a really strong team. The second that we pull it up, we can tell. I mean, we are sitting here with Jahmyr Gibbs as QB6 in my rest of season rankings. Clearly a high-end QB1 based off the rushing upside that you have. And honestly, we have Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to go ahead and potentially move on from Jared Goff. I think you're starting Daniels every single week, regardless of the matchup. So potentially if we moved Goff to maybe a team that's streaming quarterback in a 2-for-1 deal just to get a slight upgrade elsewhere. Like this team right now has Sam Darnold. So if we could potentially say sell Jared Goff in a 2-for-1 deal with potentially, I don't know, maybe Zay Flowers to go get that wide receiver upgrade. Like we go Goff, Zay Flowers to get to DJ Moore. I know some people think that Flowers is a better option than DJ Moore, but that's besides the point. I think that would be very interesting. Or maybe saying selling Goff and Bowers to go get Trey McBride. I think that's another thing that we could look to do here as well. Going over and looking at the other team that really needs a quarterback, this team has Justin Fields. So maybe instead we want to go ahead and we want to try to sell Jared Goff and a receiver like Devonta Smith to get to A.J. Brown or Zay Flowers, of course. Another thing that we could look to do is just sell Goff straight up for one of the running backs, whether that's Pollard, Dobbins, or White, and just continue to build out some of our running back depth here. But yeah, honestly, because when we have Daniels, I think you only have to I think you only have to roster one quarterback because we are going to be starting him every week regardless. Going over to running back, we're just absolutely crushing right now. I mean, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, a locked and loaded top 5 running back, rest of season, full PPR format. You have touchdown upside. You have the receiving workload as well behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. If David Montgomery were to go down, I would say at that point, Jahmyr Gibbs is probably RB1 overall for me. But then beyond that, we have Jordan Mason, Naji Harris, Zach Moss, Braylon Allen. So with Jordan Mason, locked and loaded running back 1 in the short term. Naji, Zach Moss, both very strong RB2 options. Braylon Allen with how he'll function on this team in particular, that premium handcuff back where if you were to have that injury to Breece Hall, then all of a sudden Braylon Allen is immediately a top 12 running back in fantasy. So if you were looking at this, I think you're in a very comfortable spot to maybe go ahead and sell one of these depth running backs as well to see if we can make a 2-for-1 deal and bring in a bona fide stud alpha wide receiver. Now, the issue is I think Najee's actually going to be crushing with no Jalen Warren this week. So you could potentially get a little bit more for Najee if you were to just look to hold him one more week. I think Zach Moss is still undervalued in fantasy football as well. So if you were looking to sell a running back here, I think the guy that you're going to get a ton of value for, and as you should, obviously, would actually end up being Jordan Mason. So maybe the interesting play would be to package Jordan Mason and one of the depth receivers, like Jordan Mason and Devonta Smith, to go get a stud wide receiver to see if we can get, we already have Chase, but seeing if we can get Justin Jefferson, seeing if we're able to go out and get Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that would be an absolute no-brainer. Maybe Jordan Mason and Zay Flowers, see if we can go get Tyreek Hill, because you have the running back depth that we can fill in a league with only 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. And obviously when we're sitting here with by far and away the best team in the league, really the only way that we can optimize is potentially go out there and quote unquote overpay for one of those studs. Going over to tight end, we have Bowers, top 3 tight end in fantasy rest of season. We have Hawkinson on the IR. So if Hawkinson does come back, then obviously at that point, we could potentially use him as trade bait as well. But overall, this is a phenomenal team. The only thing I'm looking to do is, 1, try to move on from Goff. If we can attack one of those teams that are streaming quarterbacks and get a slight upgrade anywhere in the lineup, that'll be interesting. Also, potentially sell Mason and one of our depth receivers like Smith or Flowers to get a true alpha wide receiver 1, because I do think we have enough running back production to backfill. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate you, my guy. And this is a phenomenal team. Definitely a much better squad than mine is. But real quick, just let everybody know in the chat, once we hit 200 likes on this stream, we'll pivot over and we'll start answering some of the free questions in the live chat. So if you want some free questions answered in the chat, go down and drop a like on the stream. But let's move this over to the next question. This is a trade question from J Duck. Says, sup boys, I'm 2-1, already have Metcalf, Olave, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs. It's a 12-team half PPR format. What are we looking to do? This is the perfect example of Malik Neighbors potentially being a sell high candidate, because you're not in a situation like Dallas. You are in what should be an offense that doesn't have a ton of passing touchdowns going into the future, whereas I'm not as worried about that with what you have with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. So I actually probably would go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb here, as well as when we're sitting with already the depth on the squad where we can get by. So let's go ahead. Let's see if we can pivot from Neighbors to Lamb, paying a depth RB2 to get it done. I think it makes a ton of sense. Now let's move this over to our next question. This one's coming out from Supafia Heat. This is 6 picks. By far and away, I don't want to say by far and away. There are 2 teams up here at the top that are juggernauts. These bottom teams don't come anywhere close to having the same type of value that we do. Saying I'm trying to make sure I continue to win this league every year for the next 5 years. What moves would you make? Puka, McCaffrey, and Brooks are all in the IR slots. So right now, according to the league analyzer, this currently is a league that is a dynasty format. And yep, we can see that with the amount of players that we are rostering as well. Just confirming, because sometimes the league analyzers have been showing keeper leagues as dynasty leagues, and just wanted to make sure that we are on the same page. And real quick, also, everybody in the chat, we are 1 like away from hitting 200 likes. So if we hit that 200 likes, we'll be pivoting over to some free questions after this. But anyway, here at quarterback, we are sitting with Dak and Goff. So we're essentially just playing the matchups between these two guys. This is a 1 quarterback dynasty format, so obviously not necessarily the most important position in the world. It's not like we are having to make dramatic changes and we have to go out there and get that upgrade at QB. And also, if we're looking at Dak and Goff, they should both project similarly for quite some time. It's not like we're expecting either QB to see a massive fall off in value in either 2025 or 2026. So I think that you're in a pretty comfortable situation with both these quarterbacks based off the current contract situations that they have. Now, going over to what we have at running back, we're currently sitting with CMC Brooks on the IR. Sounds like Brooks may be coming back next week. We have Chuba Hubbard to play in the short term over Jonathan Brooks. We have Naji Harris in here as well. So this is a room that is definitely underweight in the short term for this season. Long term this season, it should be better. But also long term in Dynasty in 2025, 2026, it's very difficult to assume that we are going to get much from McCaffrey. While at the same time, you're in a situation where Najee will probably be fading, Warren will probably be fading, Chuba will probably be fading. 2025, 2026, the only guy that you can comfortably project out is Jonathan Brooks. Does that mean we should go out and trade for, say, potentially a running back that we like in the long term? Does that mean we should trade for Trey Benson, right? No. I mean, ultimately, what we are wanting to do is probably just be patient, accumulate those 2025 picks, and then obviously you're in a situation in which that you are able to go through and you're able to reset and add to the running back room this offseason if we need to. But you have a ridiculous amount of future first-round picks, so I think we're perfectly fine there. Going over to wide receiver, this is a league where you start 9 players. So we can start 5 wide receivers from a week-to-week perspective. So obviously, we are really wanting to hammer in wide receiver. And we have Harrison, Neighbors, Wilson, Puka, London. All 5 of these players are the definition of cornerstone assets in Dynasty. They are players that we can contend with in the short term. They are players that we can contend with in the long term. They're the foundation of this team. We have additional depth pieces here, such as Brian Thomas Jr., such as Jackson Smith-Njigba. Obviously, if this was a redraft format where you'd only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I would be screaming, we have to sell Brian Thomas. We have to go get that 2-for-1 upgrade at running back. We have to sell JSN. We have to go get that 2-for-1 upgrade at running back. But honestly, given the long-term outlook that we should have for these depth receivers, these are guys that can continue to improve their dynasty value going into next offseason. And given the deeper starting lineup requirements we have, at the same time, these are players that can actually move the needle for us and make a difference right now. So I think wide receiver is phenomenal. Going over to tight end, we have Kincaid, we have Theo Johnson, we have Dawson Knox. So obviously Kincaid is additionally that cornerstone asset where we're able to go ahead and contend with them in the short term, build around them for years to come. So the main thing that I personally would be looking to do here, and I don't think that this is something that we love for most teams in Dynasty, but specifically with how strong ours is and the amount of 2025 picks that we have as well, I think we would go out there and we would try to attack some of these teams that have no shot to win this year and potentially pick up some of their running backs at a discounted rate. Like if you could say trade away a future first and bring in Derrick Henry and Anthony Richardson, I think that could make a ton of sense for your team, even if we had to trade away a first and a second. In that instance, I mean, you could go first and a second for Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon from this rebuilding roster that has absolutely no business in holding on to these declining assets here. Going over to this next team, this is also a team that clearly needs to be rebuilding. If you wanted to toss them a second rounder for James Conner or Tony Pollard to just get that short-term fill in, I think you can go ahead and look to do that as well. I mean, this team here, in my mind, doesn't really have much business trying to contend. Maybe the Jordan Mason situation saves them here a bit, but also with Andrews and Kelsey kind of falling apart, maybe we could toss them a second over and get Jordan Mason. So because you're so strong here at wide receiver and we have this foundation, I think that this is a perfect example of a team that we know that we're contending. Obviously, running back, we're not in a phenomenal spot at this point. But if we could just go through and plug and play somebody for this season by trading away one of those future picks to fill them in, I think that would be very appealing. Whether that's trading a first to go get like Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon, trading a second to get the short-term fill-in of Jordan Mason, I think that would be the move to make. Helps us win this year. We still have more than enough future value as well. But when we are acquiring those running backs, we're really only going to be caring about this year because it's so difficult to project them out in the long term. But thank you again, my guy. I really do appreciate you. Obviously, this is an obnoxiously good team. You can see with the League Analyzer how far ahead we are of everybody else here. So it's not like we have a ton of moves that we possibly can be making. But let's move over and let's answer some of the free questions in the live chat. So if you have any questions in the chat, please go down there, drop them. Be happy to try to answer as many as I can possibly handle. So I saw a bunch of people saying like, oh, the McCaffrey news, McCaffrey may miss a few more months. Like I was saying, from what I had read previously with the stem cell treatment, it sounded like he was probably going to be set up to miss another 4 to 6 weeks. I thought that was baseline expectation. So here McCaffrey may miss a couple more months. I don't necessarily think that's anything different than what people were initially expecting. Let me go ahead and let me see if I can find this. Because what I saw is I saw some like NFL meme account tweeting out that McCaffrey may miss a few more months. But honestly, for us to go through and for us to make that the expectation, this is per the San Francisco Chronicle. From what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like this is from an official source. It just seems like there's a lot of quote unquote rumors. Obviously, once you hear that he's going to Germany, expectation is it's not like CMC is coming back in week 5. From what I heard, the expectation was, okay, we need to reset and assume that CMC is at minimum going to miss another 4 to 6 weeks. So I don't know. Next question that we have is Bijan Robinson going to play? So looking at the update with Bijan, I know Bijan was limited in practice today. There are a lot of running backs that were limited in practice. I can go ahead and pull up and see the most up-to-date news that we have. But Falcons, Bijan Robinson was listed as a limited participant at practice due to a shoulder injury. Seeing some fantasy doctor says, this is Jeff Mueller says, not concerned on Bijan Robinson just yet. This could be as little as his shoulder was sore, so he sat out of one receiving drill and listed as limited participant or injured his shoulder in practice. Hopefully we hear more from the team, but I'm guessing it's nothing to worry about. If you have Bijan Robinson, I am planning on playing Bijan Robinson. If you have Bijan, I am planning on playing Bijan. Tony says, any word on Evan Ingram? I think we got word from Evan Ingram about 10 minutes ago that Evan Ingram did miss practice today. So the expectation is that if Evan Ingram's missing practice still on a Thursday, obviously he's not been in practice in quite some time. This is a team that looks like they are just going straight downhill. Yeah, Evan Ingram doesn't practice again on Thursday. I would assume that you have no Evan Ingram, and also, even if you do, I don't know if you're excited about him. LaBoss says Dak Prescott or Kyler Murray this week. I'm going to go ahead. I will take Kyler Murray over Dak. Kyler, you get the rushing upside, as well as with Kyler Murray. At the same time, you have a phenomenal matchup going up against the Washington Commanders. So he's averaging over 50 rushing yards per game. Best matchup you could possibly ask for. And at the same time, they have the highest implied team total of any team in the NFL this week. Okay. Let's move this over. Adiatai says Stroud or Mahomes this week. I'm probably going to be going with Patrick Mahomes. Matt says, is McBride going to play? I made my rankings this week under the assumption that we had no Trey McBride. I believe McBride missed practice again. Oh my gosh. Water down the wrong pipe. But honestly, I'm not necessarily sitting here saying McBride has a 0% shot. I'm about to start crying from that water. But yeah, definitely have another tight end ready to go. Definitely have someone like Frymuth, Komet, anybody you can pick up off the waiver wire. Like I have Laporta. Laporta missed practice. I'm probably assuming Laporta misses this week. Rest the bye week as well. That way, so what I did is I picked up Frymuth. That way I actually have a backup option I can pivot to. Gangu says, what is Jordan Mason worth now? We can go ahead and I can look at my updated rest of season rankings and we can try to tinker with this together. So my updated rest of season rankings, I had Jordan Mason down here at 17. Maybe Mason needs to flip with Aaron Jones. Maybe CMC needs to be coming back. What do y'all think about these rankings? With Jordan Mason having him effectively right between Kenneth Walker and McCaffrey, having Mason at 15, McCaffrey at 16 rest of season. Do you think we should be higher or lower on Jordan Mason? Higher or lower than RB15 rest of season? Because the issue is you may be in a situation in which you don't get Jordan Mason for the playoff stretch. We obviously would naturally eat into the value that you should expect because that is the most valuable time of the year. Okay. It looks like most people aren't super... looks like people aren't super opinionated on this. Seems like people are... Obviously, it's just so damn hard to project these guys. So maybe we put Jordan Mason here at 15. It is what it is. I am just so pissed we let Sal get Jordan Mason for free in the Flock League. I'm so pissed. Let's move this over. Jarius says, Xavier Worthy or T. Higgins rest of season. If you're looking at my rest of season rankings on the site, I have T. Higgins wide receiver 25. I have Xavier Worthy wide receiver 31. I think that there's going to be a ton of passing volume to go around in Cincinnati. Yoshi Vosh looks phenomenal, but I do expect that Higgins is still the wide receiver 2 here in the long term. So I'd go Higgins. Okay. Now, Ben says Rico Dowdle or Jalen Waddle in a gauntlet league. I probably go Jalen Waddle in a full PPR format. Dowdle does look like he's trending towards being the guy in Dallas, but at the same time, they have been kind of using a 3-man running back by committee, and we haven't seen a single running back performance for the Dallas Cowboys be viable in fantasy so far this season. But we will get back to the free questions in just 1 second, but let's definitely go through and make sure that we are getting through all the paid questions on flockfantasy.com. And of course, I do want to reiterate, if you wanted to get a guaranteed answer, you can always submit a start-sit question, trade question, or a full-blown team review through flockfantasy.com. What you do is you go over to the site and you hit this little comment button in the top right corner where it says expert advice. There you can choose between team review, trade question, start-sit question. Pick whatever creator you want, pick whatever league you want to ask about, pick whatever question you have. But if you wanted that team review, I definitely want to reiterate the cheapest way to get that is to take advantage of the offer that we have over there on Underdog Fantasy, where if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, you'll be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, on top of that, you'll be getting that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard. You'll get an additional free Dak Prescott pick for the game tonight, more than less than half a total yard, and a free team review in one of these live streams on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure you're setting up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your Underdog Fantasy account. That way I'm able to go through and credit your account with that free team review. Now let's move this over to TJ. This is a start-sit question here. Wide receiver, we have Rice, Marvin Harrison Jr. Tight end, we have Sam Laporta. Running back, Brees Ramadre. Quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I would definitely go Daniels over Carr. Honestly, if you have Carr, I think you can drop Derek Carr and just roster Jaden Daniels. Flex 1, we have Chris Olave. I think you have to be playing Tyreek Hill. I'm sorry. With DJ Moore, Keenan Allen looks like he is going to be coming back in potentially this week. In the case of Tyreek, while he was extremely disappointing this past week, the implied team total is actually a little bit higher in Miami, where sportsbooks are projecting out the Miami Dolphins to be a little bit of a better offense this week against the Tennessee Titans. And obviously with Tyreek, when we have the big playability, you only need one big breakaway play for him to really just smash in that second flex spot for you. So then we will go ahead and we will take Tyreek here. Now let's move this over to our next team review. This is one of those free teams, took advantage of the underdog offer. This is Basham 33. Happy to check this out for you. And yeah, this is a 12 team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So this is a format where obviously the wide receiver depth's not going to be mattering too much here. And looking at this, we have the number 1 team with the league analyzer. Pulling up the squad currently, we are sitting with Kyler Murray at quarterback. Obviously a QB that we can start every single week. He is going to be my QB2 this week against Washington, only behind Josh Allen. I think you can make an argument to have him QB1, to be honest. And real quick side note, we actually just got word Jordan Addison is going to be playing week 4. Thank God. But anyway, with Kyler, don't need a backup. We're in a great spot here at QB. The reason this team is so damn strong, the reason this team is by far and away better than everybody else with the league analyzer, is we are sitting with Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Alvin Kamara. All 3 of whom can be a top 5 running back any given week. You have Nick Chubb coming in the long term. Typically, this is a situation in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. What I prefer doing is I prefer loading up the running back depth beyond this. Like I typically prefer rostering another 2 to 3 running backs on the active team in comparison to wide receivers. But specifically for your build in particular, where we are this strong at running back with everybody healthy at the same time, Kamara was back at practice today, I am actually okay with us deciding to go through and with us deciding to only have the 4 total running backs, because as we go over to wide receivers, not great. Wide receiver here, we have Drake London, wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 1, I'm not excited about. My wide receiver 2 slot is awesome. We have Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is my wide receiver 2. I'm not that excited about. Xavier Worthy is my wide receiver 3. Awesome. We have Jameson as that boom bust option here as well. We have Keon Coleman as a boom bust option with upside rest of season. We have DeAndre Hopkins with upside rest of season. We have Quentin Johnston with upside rest of season. We have Allen Lazard, who has been fine. So the issue that you're going to have at wide receiver here is good luck submitting a starting lineup. Good luck figuring out who should be at wide receiver 2, wide receiver, in the flex spot every week. Obviously, flex, we can be going with the running back. But I'm fine with us taking shots on these high upside receivers because there is that outside chance that later in the season, Worthy does become an every week starter. There's that outside chance that Keon Coleman does become an every week starter. There's a rumor circulating today that DeAndre Hopkins may be getting dealt off of Tennessee, considering the fact this is an 0-3 team. Hopkins isn't an every down player for him at the moment. And obviously Hopkins is still flashing that he has that talent profile. So this is the one instance where I agree, let's roster this many receivers, even though it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. Going over to tight end, we have Evan Ingram and Mike Gesicki. So obviously, Evan Ingram for the long term, and Mike Gesicki, we need somebody to start in the short term. So overall, this is a very unique and a very interesting team, where typically I'd be saying, yeah, we definitely need to be moving on from some of these wide receivers at the bottom end of the squad, picking up running backs that are an injury away from being an absolute smash. But specifically, when you are this strong here at running back, I think that you're actually in a position in which we want to be holding on to the receivers and trying to see if we can get one of these guys like Keon Coleman or DeAndre Hopkins popping up to be an every week starter. Definitely, if you were to make any waiver wire moves, obviously the first guy cut here is going to be either Quentin Johnston or Allen Lazard. And we definitely want to continue to turn the waiver wire here with the final few spots. But I think we can do that at wide receiver rather than having to opt to do it at running back. But obviously, great team. I wish that I could say like, oh, we need to make some these changes. But you are number 1 in the league analyzer by a decent margin here. So honestly, I think you're in a spot where you don't necessarily need to be doing much. But let's move this over to our next team. This is 21B Hunton. This is Justin Jefferson for president. Says, I screwed up and made a trade I definitely shouldn't have. Been there, my guy. I've been there very publicly. But says, I don't know if my team is significantly worse. I used to have HN and Pitts and Pickens. What are we doing now? Okay, so we don't know what we traded them for. But looking at the team with the league analyzer, we are currently kind of middle of the road, right? We are 6th. I mean, this is a 14-team format, so wide receiver depth, I mean, just depth in general will be much tougher to come by. Looking at our quarterback room, we have Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold to play the matchups between from a week-to-week perspective. Going over to Tua, if Tua is on the IR, obviously we are completely fine with it. I mean, not really something that you need to be worrying about here. Now, on the other hand, if we're sitting here with 2 on the active roster, even with it being a 14-team format, then at that point, we're probably going to have to go ahead and we're probably going to have to let go of one of these QBs, which would be Tua. Now, going over to running back, we are sitting with Zach Moss, Jonathan Brooks, DeAndre Swift, and Tank Bigsby. I'm excited to have Zach Moss as an RB2 in a 14-team format. I for sure view Zach Moss at the very minimum as a top 28 running back. I'm excited to have Jonathan Brooks as an RB2 in a 14-team format. I definitely view Jonathan Brooks as a top 28 running back. Swift at this point may be an absolute 0 if Roschon's going to continue to expand his role. Tank Bigsby at this point is just kind of a premium handcuff back. So looking at this running back room, definitely a running back room that we're not a fan of. I would love to have HN in here if we could. Now going over to receiver, we have Justin Jefferson. So the anchor for this squad, we have Drake London. I think London very easily can be a top 14 wide receiver. So in this format in particular, we potentially have 2 wide receiver ones. We have Deebo Samuel for the long-term flex. We have Juwan Jennings for the short-term flex fill-in. We have Yoshi Vosh and Josh Downs, both of whom I think are great pickups specifically for a 14-team league where you can start them during the bye weeks if we really need to. They do give you that baseline floor. And going over to tight end, I still expect Andrews to be a top 14 tight end. So I do think that we can start him as that low-end tight end 1 every single week here. I would tell you, let's drop K-Dot and go pick up a running back off the waiver wire, but it's a 14-team format. Honestly, I'd expect the running backs off the waiver wire to just be a little bit worse here. So I'm completely fine if you wanted to sit still. And really, like I said, obviously it's an easy spot to tell you to go ahead and cut Tua if you're not able to place Tua on the IR. And if he is taking up that active roster spot for us. But assuming that Tua is on the IR, what can this team do here? Maybe once we get Deebo Samuel back in, then at that point we have to cut one of these receivers and we have to pick up another running back that's an interesting waiver wire pickup. Whether that's Juwan Jennings, Yoshi Vosh, or Josh Downs, we'll decide once Deebo is back in for this Niners offense. I'm trying to figure out what we could possibly do because the thing is, obviously, we would want to upgrade running back, but we can't afford to sell any of these guys. If you could somehow potentially move off of Juwan Jennings and DeAndre Swift and go get a desperation running back depth piece. I mean, going through and looking at some of these 14-team leagues, for teams in a 14-team format, I'd imagine that they could use Juwan Jennings. Like this team here would have Juwan Jennings slide in as their wide receiver 3 this week. If you could potentially take Juwan Jennings and DeAndre Swift and get Ramondre Stevenson, I would like that. This team has DeAndre Hopkins as their wide receiver 2. If we could take DeAndre Swift and Juwan Jennings to get to Kenneth Walker, that'd be an absolute no-brainer. This team has maybe Calvin Ridley as their wide receiver 2 this week. If you could send them Juwan Jennings and a depth piece like DeAndre Swift to get to Tony Pollard, I think that would make a lot of sense. But obviously, we just don't have too many expendable assets here at wide receiver, especially as we're dealing with the Deebo injury, we're dealing with the Brooks injury, we're dealing with the Tua injury. I think it is kind of difficult to make those trades, especially in a 14-team format where depth's going to be tougher to come by and be more important overall. But if we were wanting to make a trade, I think that's probably the setup that we are looking at there, my guy. But obviously, I could very easily see those teams rejecting. And the main thing that we need to do is just continue to make sure we turn the waiver wire, pick up the guys like Braylon Allen, pick up the guys like Jordan Mason, those running backs that could potentially turn it every week starters. But the team should just naturally be better as the season goes on, as well as we get Deebo Samuel and Jonathan Brooks back in very, very soon. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much, my guy, for being a member of the flock. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And yeah, of course, if there's anything I can ever do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. Now, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if we hit 400 likes on this stream, we are going to be firing up another draft. We are going to be getting some more free questions answered in the live chat. So if you want some free questions answered in the chat, go down there, drop a like on the stream. Once we hit 400, we'll go back to the live chat. Now, we are going to check this team out for Freaks of Nature. This is one of those teams that took advantage of the Underdog promo. Says, hey, Mason, currently 1-2, my first season playing. What do you think about the team and what kind of trades should we be looking for? All right. So first thing is, we are sitting pretty with the league analyzer. Right now, we are currently sitting as one of the top 3 teams. We have, I don't want to say a juggernaut team, but definitely these top 3 teams are a clear tier ahead of everybody else in this league. This is a league where you'll start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, and it's a 12-team format, so we don't want to be rostering a ton of receivers here. Like looking at the squad, though, I mean, quarterback, Allen, tight end, Kincaid. I definitely think you only have to roster 1 QB, 1 tight end. We have the best quarterback in fantasy. We have a top 5 tight end here rest of season as well. We're starting these guys regardless of their respective matchups, so obviously we don't need backups at these individual positions. Going over to running back, we're currently sitting with Jahmyr Gibbs. So we have a top 5 RB. We have Moss and Jonathan Brooks as solid RB2 options. I think Zach Moss is going to crush this week yet again. You have the red zone role. Not only do you have the red zone role, but you have the receiving role, and he is seeing 80, 90+% of this backfield in Cincinnati. Not 90%, but he is seeing 80+%. And then we have some of these running backs that are potentially an injury away or their situation changing away from seeing that high ceiling, such as Bucky Irving, Rico Dowdle, Tyler Algier down here on the bench. I really do like rostering as many of these running backs as we possibly can. And dear God, I see people in the chat saying Nico Collins hamstring. We'll get to the Nico Collins hamstring injury in just 1 second. Oh my gosh. Wide receiver, we have Wilson, Evans, Waddle, Dell, Shaheed, Downs, and Michael Wilson. So here at wide receiver, Garrett Wilson actually has some very tough matchups coming up soon. Ultimately, I still view him as that low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. I believe we have him right behind some of these players like Malik Neighbors. Definitely a wide receiver that we can start, maybe with just lowered expectations overall. Sitting here with Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Tank Dell. I'm completely fine with this wide receiver room in the long term. Based off the Tua injury, I'm okay rostering a few of these depth receivers like Shaheed and Josh Downs as well, because obviously Jalen Waddle is significantly less appealing in the short term. Tank Dell is significantly less appealing in the short term considering his own injury. But now Nico Collins is down. If Nico misses and Dell plays, Dell is a really strong option. But I mean, if we could potentially go ahead and take one of these depth receivers and make a 2-for-1 deal to get an upgrade at wide receiver, I think that's what we would be looking to do. If you could potentially take Shaheed, say, and Garrett Wilson to pivot over to a wide receiver like Tyreek Hill, I think that would be an absolute no-brainer. Maybe this team would potentially be interested in that now that they have the Nico Collins injury as well. Or maybe we can even afford to make that trade and go out and get Nico Collins ourselves if you're not super worried about the hamstring. Going over and looking at what we have with some of the other squads, we're really targeting those teams that don't have the wide receiver depth. Like maybe here, another thing that we could look to do is see if we can go from Mike Evans and Shaheed to go get a wide receiver like Chris Olave and open up that roster spot for us. Because I would like to pick up another running back off the waiver wire, but I wouldn't want to drop Downs or Michael Wilson just yet. So I think that would be a very interesting 2-for-1 tier up at wide receiver if we could possibly do it. Running back, I think Moss and Brooks are honestly a little bit undervalued. So I'd be looking to hold on to these running backs here. And then maybe just making that 2-for-1 tier up at wide receiver, picking up another running back off the waiver wire. But there's not too much that you can be looking to do with this team. I really like the construction of it. I think you just have to hope that Garrett Wilson is able to survive some of the really tough matchups that he has here. But thank you again, my guy. Really do appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out with this in some way. Obviously, you have one of the best teams in the league. I think it's a great construction. Really, the only thing that I would do is if you can sucker a league mate to giving us the best receiver in terms of a 2-for-1 tier down, we would. But let's go ahead and let's dive into the Nico Collins injury. I have no idea what happened. I just saw everybody in the chat all of a sudden spamming that Nico Collins goes down. So let's pull this up. Nico Collins. More injury issues for the Texans. Offensive skill group. Nico Collins was limited in practice today with a hamstring. A hamstring always scares me more than like Bijan with the shoulder. But dear God, let me compile all the injuries that we have real quick. This is freaking nuts. Okay. Let's do this together, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this together. All right, so list of injuries right now that we are dealing with. Nico Collins. Tank Dell. Joe Mixon. Bijan Robinson. A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith. Come on, start. Let me hear him in the live chat right now. Sam Laporta. Trey McBride. Debo Samuel. George Kittle. CMC. Kamara's good to go. I think Kamara was at practice today. Yes, NFL 2-ban tackling. It's officially in. Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp. What else are we dealing with here? David Njoku. We'll throw him next to the other tight ends. Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, I can't even remember. I can't come close to remembering all these. Jalen Warren. I think Kenneth Walker's playing, right? I thought Kenneth Walker's going to go this week, unless I'm wrong. My man, Sticky Ricky. Sadly, Sticky Ricky. I think Kenneth Walker's good to go. I'll add Tua to the list. Hawkinson, Chubb were injured coming into the year. I think Love's good to go as well. Unless I'm mistaken. Is Harrison injured? I thought Harrison was fine. What's going on with Harrison? Marvin Harrison. Dealing with the quad, he is running at practice today, so I don't think Harrison's somebody we got to worry about. Adam Thielen, I don't think's of consequence. We'll throw Evan Ingram here alongside the tight ends as well. I thought Jaden Reed was good to go. Keenan Allen. I guess we can throw Keenan in. I think Keenan's going to be good to go unless I'm wrong. Austin Eckler, good point. Forgot about Eckler. I'm missing Eckler in my own league. Bucky Irving says he's going to be playing today. Rome should be playing as well. I do think that Bijan Robinson will play. Let's see. Hollywood Brown. We'll throw them on. Oh no, we're out of space. We're gonna tweet this out as is. Dear God, nuts. But yeah, I guess Stephon Diggs to the freaking moon. Stephon Diggs could not be more exciting. I know Debo is practicing today. I actually just put a decent amount of money on Brandon Ayuk to score a touchdown this week. So I'm maybe hoping that we get... And also, what I'm going to feel really dumb about is I just traded with Sal for Anthony Richardson. So if you have, say, Kittle playing, Debo playing, I'd probably play Brock Purdy over Anthony Richardson this week when Richardson's going up against the Steelers. And I'm going to feel very dumb if that is the case. Because obviously then at that point we are trading for a quarterback to put on our bench. Shang and Shake says Cam Akers or Pierce. Damian Pierce didn't practice today, so it's going to be Cam Akers over Pierce. If you're asking Cam Akers versus Alec Pierce, then it's going to be Cam Akers pretty easily for me. Akers had the starting job on lock this past week for the Houston Texans. Obviously, he's not going to have third down usage. Dare is going to get that, but that's the same case with Joe Mixon. So I don't necessarily think things are too different there. Okay. So let's move this over. Ray says Ayuk for Xavier Worthy and Bucky Irving. I would definitely prefer to have Brandon Ayuk there. I think it's Ayuk kind of easily as well, to be honest with you. Okay. So let's move this over. Chandler says, why aren't we talking about how Caleb Williams is the best schedule? Is he going to skyrocket? Obviously, Caleb has looked very bad. I think that, Caleb's on the waiver wire in the Flock League. I could potentially look to, if he continues to actually go out and have the passing volume, you could potentially look to move on from Purdy for Caleb. The issue with Caleb Williams is we were kind of hoping that you were going to see the rushing ceiling, and Caleb hasn't been running the ball too much. Like, let me pull up the exact rushing statistics that you've had from Caleb Williams so far this season. Caleb Williams stats. Obviously at USC, you didn't have a ton of rushing yards, but at the same time, you did have the rushing touchdowns. So you didn't really know exactly what to expect in the NFL. But so far this year, he's given you 67 rushing yards off of 11 rushing attempts. So the rushing upside really hasn't been there. Okay. Brandon says Burrow or A-Rich. I would rather have Burrow this week for sure. Burrow going up against the Panthers versus A-Rich going up against Pitt. But let's move this over and let's answer some more of the questions over on flockfantasy.com. Of course, definitely want to reiterate, you can always ask whatever trade question, start set question, full-blown roster review you want through flockfantasy.com. If you wanted a full roster review, however, for free, definitely the easiest way to get it, like this team out, they got it for free, is going and taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you use promo code FLOCK, you are going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Also, with promo code FLOCK, you will also get a free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard, a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard as well. And if you wanted that free team review in the live stream, like these other teams are getting, just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your Underdog account. That way I can accredit you with your free team review voucher. But let's move this over for Hot Daddy. 0-3 in this league. No A.J. Brown's been rough and played some tough matchups. My weakest league. All right, well, let's go ahead and check this out. I was going to say, you're with us in a ton of these live streams. If we're 0-3 in our only league, I'd be a little embarrassed for me, not for you. But anyway, looking at this, I think London is going to be a must-start receiver here. Looking between some of these other options, it does get a little bit tougher now that we know that Keenan Allen's probably going to be good to go. We are going to be primarily choosing between Jawan Jennings, George Pickens, Rome Odunze, and Jameson. I think if Debo does not play and if Kittle does not play, we go Jawan Jennings. Now, if either or both of those players are good to go, then obviously you move Jawan Jennings, significantly down your rankings. And then at that point, I probably go with George Pickens. Tight end, Ferguson's a must-start play. Going over to running back, Ramondre based off volume. Jahmyr Gibbs as well. You know what? Actually, we're going to put Singletary in here for RB. We'll put Ramondre down in the flex. Because remember, Singletary is going to go tonight, so we always want to make sure that we are submitting the running back on Thursday. That has the Thursday injury in the running back slot, not the flex spot, just in case we have a surprise injury later in the week and we have a little more flexibility to make some changes. But this is another start sit question here from Hot Daddy. Here, this is, okay, I was going to say, is this the same team? No, but we just have Juwan Jennings on both. But anyway, here we're going to go Brandon Ayuk for sure, kind of regardless of the situation with Debo Kittle. We will go Juwan Jennings for sure as well. You have the Herbert injury, the Joe Alt injury, the Devonta Smith injury. So I think Ladd's not as interesting. Smith isn't as interesting. Still think Keon has a ton of upside rest of season, but he did get benched in the first quarter for showing up late last week. Not necessarily something that I want to be messing with too much. Okay. Now moving over to our next spot, we have Brock Bowers at tight end, must start player. Breece Hall must start. Kamara looks like he is going to be good to go. Alvin Kamara was at practice today. We go A-Rich over Fields, even though A-Rich has a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. Fields isn't running a ton right now. And then down there in the flex, this is where things get maybe a little bit difficult. Assuming Smith doesn't play, assuming Herbert doesn't play, I think we go ahead and we take Keon Coleman. Obviously, if Smith plays, we go Devonta Smith. And if Herbert does play, you can consider Ladd over Keon. Okay. Now let's move this over to a trade question from Evan. Says, hey Mason, 3-0. Should we ship Ferguson to upgrade at quarterback or look for a better deal? Good luck in the Flock League. Thank you, my guy. I actually just made that trade in the Flock League. The videos should come out on Monday. I don't think we're going to do trade videos anymore. I think we're just going to do the weekly recap videos. But anyway, here, pivoting from Nico to Evans, even with the Nico injury, is a downgrade. I think paying Ferguson and Kyler to get to Josh Allen maybe is a little bit too much. I know we have Dalton Kincaid at tight end, so I understand why we would want to be doing it. So on this side of the deal, I actually would prefer Kyler, Ferguson, Collins. If we wanted to come up with a counter, I think maybe we take out Nico Collins and we take out Mike Evans. So if you wanted to trade Kyler and Ferguson for Allen when we have Kincaid, I think we would be down with that. Now let's move this over to our next trade question. This is coming out from Kobe. Here it says, looking to sell Rachaad White. So going from White to Kamara, massive upgrade. Lamb to Neighbors is a downgrade. But honestly, I think you can probably say that Kamara and Neighbors are in a high enough tier that you can take this side. Typically, I don't want to be giving up the best player, but obviously, if Kamara is good to go, Kamara is a top 10 running back rest of the season. Neighbors looks like a top 10 receiver as well. Can y'all please spam the chat? What side would you prefer? Would you prefer to have Lamb and White or Kamara and Neighbors? Lamb and White or Kamara and Neighbors? Seth says, how do we know when you're going to review our team? So if you submit any questions through flockfantasy.com, this is why it's way better than Super Chats. You're actually going to get sent the answer directly to you through the site. So like say for this trade question, I'm going to pick the winner. They're going to see on the site, oh, Mason picked the winner. And they're also going to get a YouTube link to a clip of me answering their question as well. So you copy and paste that YouTube link into YouTube or into Safari, whatever browser you want. And then you can see that team review. So even if you're not in the live stream, you'll still get the answer of your question sent to you directly, which is honestly why it's one of the many reasons why I think this is much, much better than Super Chats. But right. So yeah, everybody's in agreement. Everybody wants the right side here with Kamara and Neighbors. Okay, so moving this over with MLB Pitcher. Says, hey man, 0-3 with this team. Desperately feel like we need a better running back. Keepers killed me in the draft. We have 2 solid tight ends when Evan Ingram comes back. So figure dealing 1 isn't the worst ideal. So Shakir, depth receiver, definitely going to be a week-to-week play depending on matchup. If it was a multiple flex league, then maybe we're a little more excited about Shakir. But specifically, if you're in a situation in which this is a league where you only start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, Shakir's not going to make that big a difference. James Cook would be the best player in the deal at that point. So then we go ahead and we take James Cook here. But let's go ahead. Love the team name. We're going to get this team review going for Bin Bon. Says, don't love my running back situation. Any potential moves you would want to make. So the team name here is Globo Gym Purple Cobras. Let's go. Love the team name. But anyway, looking at the league analyzer, while technically we are 4th, at the same time, it doesn't really matter because if you are looking the top teams in this league, there are 4 of them. There is us, Big Sexy, Bet to Neighbors, and that's Mooney Dude. So here, as long as we are inside this top 4, that's all really close. We're chilling. Saying don't love our running back situation. So going ahead and pulling this up. Yeah, we can see with the league analyzer, we have the 8th best running back room here. Looking at quarterback, we have Goff and Derek Carr. I definitely think that you can just go ahead and play the matchups between these two guys going into the future. If you wanted to drop Derek Carr and only roster Goff, I think you could if you really wanted to. Maybe not the same thing maybe it's not something we have to do in every league. Kind of depends on how many quarterbacks there. Yeah. So there are freaking some teams here that are rostering multiple QBs, then we don't have to worry about it as much. Going over to running back, I forgot that we can actually sort the teams by the position strength. Going over to running back, we have the 8th best running back room. We have Henry, Mason, Charbonnet, Warren, Mostert, Justice Hill. So Derrick Henry, Jordan Mason, 2 locked and loaded running backs that we can start every single week going into the future. I still am personally worried about Derrick Henry in a full PPR format, where I would still prefer pivoting from Derrick Henry to maybe somebody like Josh Jacobs. I know people are going to absolutely hate to hear me say that, but I think there you have a little bit more of the receiving involvement, whereas Derrick Henry, obviously you are seeing Justice Hill just take a high percentage of snaps and a high percentage of receiving volume in this backfield. So if you potentially wanted to move on from Derrick Henry to pivot over to another top running back, I'm not going to fault you for it. But actually, this is a half PPR league. So in this format, Derrick Henry is actually much more appealing, and I'd probably go ahead and look to hold on to Derrick. Going over to what we have with some of the running backs, the tough spot that you're in this week is we may have to let go of one of these depth running backs like Justice Hill to pick up another receiver. Because if we're looking at the wide receiver room now, you're not only dealing with the Devonta Smith injury, but at the same time, you're going to be dealing with the injury to Nico Collins, where if Collins misses, we're starting Lamb and Reed this week. We have no wide receiver 3. So if you wanted to potentially move, say, Justice Hill and get another wide receiver off the waiver wire, especially in a league where you can start up to 4 receivers from a week-to-week perspective, I think that is something we could look to do. Also in a half PPR format, I don't necessarily know if Justice Hill has the same type of upside that he would in a full PPR league. So I think we cut Justice Hill, pick up another wide receiver with this context. Even if we have the Jalen Warren injury and the Raheem Mostert injury, going over to what we have with the flex spots, the wide receiver slots, we have 2 top receivers rest of season with Lamb, Collins. We have Devonta Smith. We have Jaden Reed. I love Smith as wide receiver 3. Love Jaden Reed as wide receiver 4. Wide receiver room, definitely one of the strongest in this league. We can go ahead and sort by the best wide receiver rooms. Or right now, we currently have the second best. The only team that's better than us, dear God, is just because they are rostering 1,000 of them. But really, the only adjustments we want to be making in terms of quarterback, running back, receiver is possibly dropping Derek Carr, Justice Hill to pick up a wide receiver and a running back. I think Hill's just somebody I don't want to roster in a half PPR format. Going over to tight end when we have Kincaid and Laporta, clearly we want to be selling one of these tight ends if we get the opportunity to. The issue is Laporta's injured, so we can't sell Kincaid. And Laporta has been horrendous. So at the same time, nobody's going to buy Sam Laporta right this second. But if we are coming out of the bye week and you could potentially package together, say, Dalton Kincaid and a running back like Derrick Henry to go get a true elite RB1, maybe to go get a running back like, I would probably not go Gibbs, probably not go Kamara with this being a half PPR format, But go get Bijan, go get Barkley, go get Brees. I think that'd be an absolute no-brainer. Obviously, it depends on how Kincaid would do over the next few weeks, but I don't necessarily want to tie up this much value specifically just into the tight end position. And yeah, drop Derek Carr, pick up another wide receiver with the wide receiver injuries. When we get the opportunity, we will sell a tight end, but that opportunity probably isn't showing right now. Justice Hill, probably don't love the upside in a half PPR format. Probably look to drop and pick a different player off the waiver wire, even when we have Derrick Henry, because even with the Henry injury, I don't love the upside of Justice Hill, specifically in a half PPR format. But really do appreciate y'all. Appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out some way, my guy. And also love the team name. One of the best team names I've seen all year. But let's go ahead and let's get this going for Back Mask. This is one of those teams that took advantage of the free Underdog promo. It says just how am I doing in general and any trades I can make to get some more running back value so I don't have to sweat it out every week with Ramondre. Well, your boy right now is having to sweat it out every week with Ramondre anyway. And it looks like maybe this didn't load for us initially. Come on, load Back Mask. Okay, we are going to have to get that going later on in the stream. I'm sorry, my guy. We're going to have to skip by you in just 1 second. HBK says, so I'm being offered Jameson for Naji. I'm looking for a solid flex. You're not getting nearly enough value, especially with the Jalen Warren injury. I need to go ahead and if I have Naji ranked 75 overall, I need to pull up my rest of season ranks here, and I need to move Naji Harris up. I have Naji at 21. Maybe I just need to move him up in the overall ranks in comparison to the receivers. Yeah, I think we need to move up these mid-tier running backs. So let's go ahead. Let's move Naji. Let's move Pollard up. I think I'd probably flip Pollard and Naji as well in terms of where they are ranked in my RB ranks. I think we probably have to move Naji up to RB 20 at the very minimum rest of season with the Jalen Warren injury. But yeah, no, I think Naji Harris is definitely the play that you want. With Jalen Warren going down, he looks like he's just going to have such a high percentage of this backfield in Pittsburgh. Now let's go over to the next trade question. This was coming out from Blicky Pearsall. Here, this is Devonta Smith, Marvin Harrison versus Justin Jefferson. So here, I think Harrison absolutely crushes, especially this week against Washington. He's been phenomenal, but Justin Jefferson's in a different tier. I think anytime you get the ability to go through and package one of those like round 2 assets with like a round 4 fantasy football asset to get one of those true alphas such as Jefferson, you go ahead and make that 2-for-1 deal easily. Ew. Hopefully we didn't get water on the mic, but real quick, when we hit, Ray Charles says, any way we can petition for ESPN to fix their trade analyzer? It's killing trades for me. It's so garbage. Just use the trade calculator on flockfantasy.com. We worked so much on that trade calculator on the site for you to use. So yeah, please. The trade calculator is free on flockfantasy.com as well. But also, if we hit 600 likes on this stream, we are going to go ahead and we're going to pivot over to the live chat to answer some more free questions. But K. Curtis coming out. This is a start set where wide receiver, we are choosing between Neighbors, Harrison, Rice, Rome. This is a ridiculous team. We're going to go Rice at wide receiver. Are we really only able to start one flex here? Running back between Walker, Moss, Brian Robinson, Charbonnet. We go with most likely Brian Robinson with Austin Eckler missing this week. Kenneth Walker is a very tough matchup going up against the Detroit Lions. Going over to what we have in the flex. This is where it becomes tough between Harrison and Neighbors. I will go ahead and flex Marvin Harrison in a great matchup against the Commanders, where I think you could very easily see Harrison be a top 3 wide receiver this week. And right now, the Cardinals are actually projected to be the highest scoring offense in the NFL. Now, is Skip Dapple coming out, says, running backs would be weak, but should we do this? So let's see, is your team linked? Our running back room after making this trade would end up being Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams, Ray Davis, Jalen Warren, Tank Bigsby. So no, I don't think you can afford to make this trade. Maybe if Tank Dell was fully healthy, we could look at it, but I think you keep the best player with Breece Hall. I don't know if your running back room is strong enough. Maybe we can try to come up with a counter, and instead of them including Tank Dell, they give us another running back in return. Yeah, no, the thing is, yeah, they don't even have a viable running back. So I actually wouldn't be interested in a counter here at all. We would just go ahead. We would just take the Breece Hall side. I can see why that team's wanting to pay you for an RB, but and it would be different if Tank Dell was fully healthy, and it looked like Tank Dell was going to project to have a good role this week. But let's move this over to our next question. This was going to be coming out from Ghost. Says, took my first L last week. We started Mark Andrews. Should we be looking to trade? All right. Well, let's first just make sure we get the lineup in. Wide receiver, the guy that we'd be looking to start would be Jamison Williams out of this list. Definitely. Actually, I would start Jamison over Shaheed, especially if Laporta is going to be missing this week. And for sure going to go Dallas Goedert over Andrews this week with all the injuries in Philly. Running back, I think we put Gibbs in over J.K. Dobbins relatively easily. And then for the flex spot, this is where I think we can have that conversation. It's really be down between Dobbins and Shaheed. Dobbins, tough matchup, while at the same time, you're in a spot where you have the Joel injury, you have the Justin Herbert injury. The offense is probably going to be a little bit worse as well. I think we still go ahead and we take Dobbins for the guaranteed touches, though. Now let's move this over to Joaquin's team. Really appreciate you being a member of the flock. Gonna be excited to check this out. It says Closet Cowboys fan. It says, hey Mason, currently 2-1. Just wondering if you think there are any improvements we can make to the team. Any suggestions? Thank you very much. No, thank you, my guy, for being a member of the flock. And I will say we definitely have one of the best teams in this league, right? There are those two top teams with the league analyzer. Beyond that, it does look like everybody else is much, much worse. But going ahead and looking at this being a 2-quarterback format, I'm okay with us rostering 3 QBs. Now, the issue that we have here is it looks like Gardner Minshew may be getting benched in Las Vegas. Obviously, with that being the case, it does make a lot of sense for us to potentially go out there and see if we are able to pick up Aiden O'Connell for free. If we can pick up Aiden O'Connell for free, we'd be a lot more excited about how we can project out this quarterback room in the long term. The guy that I'd probably look to drop would maybe be Evan Ingram, to be honest. Let's look at the rest of the teams here at QB. This team's rostering Penix and Russ. So honestly, maybe Aiden O'Connell's already rostered. Yeah, there are a bunch of teams here rostering 4 QBs. No, nobody's rostering Aiden O'Connell. Let me go ahead and pull up the most recent report that we have with Minshew versus O'Connell. Okay. Gardner and Minshew. Okay. Rappaport did come out a couple days ago and say that the Raiders are sticking with Minshew. No Aiden O'Connell just yet. Okay, so we should be good there at QB. So never mind. Please ignore me on that front. But anyway, looking at what we have out running back, we are sitting here with the best running back room in the league. We have 3 top 10 running backs with Gibbs, Kamara, and Mixon. Obviously, we're not expecting Mixon to come back until potentially next week, but we're still in a very good spot at RB. We have Chubb in the long term. We have Braylon Allen as someone that we can go with the desperation play, but he also has the premium handcuff appeal if anything were to occur to Breece Hall as well. So it is a great running back room where there aren't really any adjustments that we need to be making here. Going over to wide receiver, we are currently sitting with CeeDee Lamb, Harrison, Reed, Thomas, and Jordan Addison. Now, this is a league where we're probably starting 4 receivers from every week unless we can throw Mixon in that flex spot. With Mixon banged up, the wide receiver depth does look like it matters. So it's nice that we're getting Jordan Love back in to prop up Jaden Reed. And we have the long-term upside of Brian Thomas or Jordan Addison as being viable assets. But overall, if you were looking to do something here, I don't see a clear path for a trade. Maybe if you could potentially, in this super flex league, see if we can squeeze out the value from Braylon Allen. If you could pivot over, say, and trade Braylon Allen and Dak Prescott to go get a top-end QB, or Braylon Allen and Baker Mayfield to go get a top-end QB in this super flex league, I think that would be very interesting. Going through and looking at maybe some of the teams that would be willing to make that trade with you. I mean, this team is Jalen Warren as their RB3 here. Like Braylon Allen, Baker Mayfield to go buy low on Anthony Richardson. I think that could make a lot of sense with the Richardson upside. This team is Brian Robinson, DeAndre Swift as their top 2 RBs. Maybe Braylon Allen and Gardner Minshew to go get Caleb Williams. I think that'd make a lot of sense in a super flex format as well. But overall, definitely a well-balanced team where there's not much to do outside of, I would like to upgrade QB considering the fact that we can get 2 of these guys in our lineup every week. But really, I think we are chilling where we are at the very top of the league analyzer. But I do appreciate you, and I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here, my guy. But let's move over to our next trade question. Jazzy Bass says, is this a good trade for me? I have Lamar as my starting quarterback. So moving from Daniels to Brooks and Jackson Smith and Jigba, the issue is this looks like it's only a 10-team league where you start 2 receivers and 1 flex if we fill this out correctly. I would, obviously, if you have Lamar, I think that Brooks and JSN's the winning side. But at the same time, I would just assume that you're probably in a spot to squeeze out a little more value from Jaden Daniels with how damn good Jaden Daniels has looked as of late. But a couple different things, ladies and gentlemen. One, I do want to reiterate, when we hit 600 likes on this stream, we are going to pivot over and start answering some of those free questions in the live chat. So if you have not done so already, hit that like button. And also, see, Dallas Cowboys fan says, Mason Bro just signed up to Underdog with code FLOCK and made that deposit. How do I see about going with that team review? So if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy and made that $10 deposit, what Underdog does, just to pull the curtain back for everybody, so everybody can just be on the same page here, is Underdog every morning sends me a CSV with all the email addresses that signed up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK and made that $10 deposit from the day before. What we do on flockfantasy.com is that morning we go ahead and we upload that CSV and we accredit all those teams on all those accounts on flockfantasy.com that have the same email address with a free team review voucher. So if you just use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, just make sure that you have an account set up on flockfantasy.com and we can go ahead and get you that team review voucher for tomorrow morning. And of course, if y'all wanted to take advantage of that, y'all can find the link in the description, in the comment section, in the live chat to Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog as well, if you use code FLOCK, you're actually going to get an additional free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard for Sunday, and a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard for tonight, and a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. So make sure you take advantage. You can find that link in the description, comment section, and live chat. But let's move this over to Rated R Savior, longtime member of the flock. I'm very sorry for whatever reason. The chart's not pulling up. We're going to have to get back to it. Sometimes it doesn't load. Next time we go to it, it will, my guy. But really do appreciate you and excited to look at that team in a bit. But this is a trade question from B. Marlowe says, my running backs after this trade would be Taylor, Ford, Akers, Roschon, CMC. My wide receivers after this trade would be Olave, Neighbors, Godwin, Shakir. Ooh, okay. I go from Love and Fields to Lamar. So looking at this, Bucky Irving to Zach Charbonnet, give me Zach Charbonnet. Aaron Jones to Jonathan Taylor, give me Jonathan Taylor. Travis Etienne to Lamar Jackson, give me Lamar Jackson. Or paying Deebo Samuel to upgrade over all 3 spots. I think we really like this deal. I think you can go ahead and pull the trigger. And you're getting the best player with Taylor. You're getting the elite quarterback with Lamar. I think it makes a ton of sense. Let's go for it. And it does look like we are Pseudo streaming quarterback right now. But Dylan, always out here dropping questions. Says he declined. Should I go do this or go somewhere else for a wide receiver upgrade? Can y'all please spam the chat? What side are you taking here? Are you going with Jordan Mason, Drake London, or Brian Robinson and Rashee Rice? And Dylan, also, let me know if you're in the live chat right now. I know you're always hanging out with us. Okay, so we got Rice, Mason, Rice, Mason, Rice, Rice. I actually thought there would be more people saying the Jordan Mason side with the assumption that most people are making in the chat that CMC misses the year. But, I mean, yeah, I think Rice is the best player in the trade. And if everybody in the chat says Rice as well, they can go ahead and take Rashee Rice. But let's move this over to UWU Savage. This is a trade where we pivot from Lamb to Bijan, kind of a lateral move. Ayuk to Neighbors, we get that upgrade. And we're paying McCaffrey. Now, if you think McCaffrey is going to be missing the rest of the season, then obviously this is kind of a no-brainer trade. So, in that case, if you think McCaffrey is out for the rest of the year, you go Bijan and Malik Neighbors. But at the same time, if we assume Lamb, Bijan is a lateral move, and you think that there's a shot that McCaffrey does come back this season, then I probably do prefer the McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk side of this. But just knowing the raw trade value that you have as of today, also everybody in the chat saying that they would rather have Malik Neighbors. Spam the chat here as well. Would you rather have the Lamb or Bijan Robinson side? Because I think this is very close, and I think it all hinges on what your personal expectations are for the amount of time that McCaffrey is going to be missing. Are you going to go Lamb, Ayuk, McCaffrey, or are you going to go Bijan Neighbors? Okay. We got Bijan, Lamb, Bijan, Lamb, Lamb, Bijan. So it does look like most people are on the Bijan Robinson side. Like I said, I do think it comes down to your McCaffrey opinion, which it's hard for me to have a strong one. I'd rather have Rashee Rice over Kyron Williams straight up, so this is very easy. But this is, I have Kyron, Bijan, Mason. In wide receiver, we have Nico, Higgins, JSN. So yeah, I think you go ahead. I think you trade Kyron Williams for Rashee Rice and Braylon Allen here relatively easily. With Kyron, you still have the concerns centering around the offensive line, as well as, I mean, the injured receivers making this Rams offense pretty bad. Going over to our next trade question from Michael. Says, was wondering if you think we should do this trade or counter and try to get Rico Dowdle. So Shakir to Terry McLaurin. Give me Terry. Bucky to Spears. I'm completely fine. I think both of them have small roles. Both of them are kind of premium handcuff backs. So we're going to go Terry McLaurin and Tajay Spears here, my guy. We're going to go McLaurin and Spears. Now, Nor coming out with a start sit question. Here at wide receiver, if we wanted to get somebody in, Christian Kirk would be the best option. Can't start Kirk over Ayuk or Wilson. Tight end, I would go Mark Andrews over Isaiah Likely still. Running back, the best option to get in would be Singletary or Kenneth Walker. Honestly, I think we probably end up playing all four running backs. But just in case anything happens, obviously we want to put Devin Singletary into the running back slot because he plays on Thursday. Just so we had the flexibility later in the week. We don't want to put him in the flex. And then we go Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery down here on the bench. And if Kenneth Walker were to miss, we pivot to Christian Kirk. And then, yeah, we still play Stroud over Stafford, even if you have no Dell or Collins. Okay. Now let's go over to Smithy's trade question. This is Taylor Moore Eckler for Kamara, London, Singletary. This does look like it's a full PPR format. With this being a full PPR format, give me Alvin Kamara. Honestly, I have Kamara ranked 12 overall. I have Taylor ranked 13 overall. Looking at the expert rankings on the site, the expert rankings have Taylor at RB4, Kamara at RB8. So the experts say Taylor easily. I think that they are back-to-back, kind of up to you. DJ Moore versus Drake London. I give the slight edge to Drake London. I have London at 24 overall, DJ Moore at 30 overall. And then Singletary, Eckler, I give the slight edge to Singletary. If this is a full PPR format, we go with the Kamara side. If it is a half PPR or non-PPR league, then obviously Taylor actually jumps Kamara and is much more appealing. Now, it's going to be another trade question from Dylan. Says, people in my league basically have no idea how to trade. They worried about CMC coming back. Okay. Looking at this, London to Neighbors is an upgrade, but paying Walker and Mason to get it done, I think it's too much, at least in my mind. I know obviously everybody and their mom is so damn excited about Malik Neighbors, and I do be on record. It seems like Neighbors is going to be a top 5 real life talent at the wide receiver position in his career. But with that being said, giving up these 2 viable running backs, only getting Bucky Irving in return, I think I have to go ahead. I think I have to take the London Mason Walker side. Okay. Now let's move this over to Corrispo. This is Cup versus Jacobs and DJ Moore. I would very easily rather have Josh Jacobs and DJ Moore. I think this would be a very tough question to answer if Cooper Kupp was fully healthy. But Kupp, not a practice. Kupp already been ruled out this week. I think Jacobs still that low-end RB1. DJ Moore still that high-end wide receiver 2. And can you all please remind me, when we hit 600 likes in the stream, we are going to be answering the free questions in the chat. So let me know when we hit 600 likes and we'll pivot over. Now, Chief Reef, for a long time, member of the flock, happy to see you over on the site. This is Stephon Diggs, Malik Neighbors here at receiver. If we wanted to get somebody in, A.J. Brown's missing. Obviously, we can't consider. Going over to running back, we are looking at Ford, Charbonnet, Braylon Allen. Charbonnet does have a really, really tough matchup against the Lions. But with Kenneth Walker's first week back in, I do expect that maybe Walker's going to be limited a bit, and we can't expect that Charbonnet is probably the guy. Going over to the flex spot, I am going to take Deontay Johnson in over Ford, Braylon Allen. You know what? Let me actually see what's the projections with Ford this week. Underdog is Ford higher, lower, 61.5 total yards. So if Walker plays, you probably have to go Ford over Kenneth Walker. But we're playing Deontay Johnson regardless. And then obviously if Deontay misses, then we go Zach Charbonnet in his place. Okay. But it does look like we had 600 likes in this live stream. So if you have any question, please ask it in the live chat. We'll try to get to as many of the free questions as we possibly can. Untrue Ninja says, flex for the full PPR. Are we going to be going with Rome Odunze or Tony Pollard? I probably actually end up going with Tony Pollard. Obviously, Rome absolutely crushed this past week. But at the same time, you possibly have no Keenan. So with Keenan back, I think we just take the running back with the guaranteed workload. I would definitely rather have Rome rest of season. I think Rome's going to continue to get better as the year goes on. But I don't know if Caleb's going to have 50 passing attempts and Keenan being back. I think Rome's kind of in for a down week here. Okay, let's move this over. Solomon says HN or Allen in a non-PPR format. Is this Josh Allen? We're trading Devon HN for Josh Allen in a non-PPR league. Couple different things. One, in a non-PPR format, quarterback scoring is actually going to be elevated in comparison to other positions. So here, Josh Allen is a little more appealing in a non-PPR format than he would be in a full PPR league. Also, HN obviously is a running back that's been absolutely crushing based around his receiving usage. So I definitely think it's a fair trade. If it was a full PPR format, I very easily prefer HN over Josh Allen. But I think you could look at Allen here. Chandler says Davante Adams injury. Are you kidding me? Davante Adams pops up on the injury report with a hamstring today. He was limited. Another one to watch. Dear God. This is why it is very important to make sure if you're playing anybody tonight, do not put them at the flex. If you're playing Singletary, put them at your RB2. If you're playing Wandale, do not put him in your flex. Put him in your wide receiver 2. If you're playing Lamb, throw Lamb in your wide receiver 2. Don't put him in your flex. It's a tough spot. Tough. Okay. Adam says, just spot a start sit help, including tonight's game thing. We'll get to in time. 100%. I will get to all the start sit questions and all the trade questions before the game starts. I can't guarantee we'll get to all the roster reviews before the game starts, but we will get to all the start sit and trades. PT says, should I trade J.K. Dobbins and Juwan Jennings for DJ Moore? Yes, I would. I think Juwan Jennings, super short shelf life. Once we end up getting back in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings may have some random spike weeks, but in terms of you actually being able to predict it, put him into your starting lineup, would be extremely difficult. So, yeah, I think just pivoting over to long-term upside with DJ Moore makes a lot of sense. Zachary says, trade Jordan Mason for Jahmyr Gibbs. Thank you. Thank you. In a full PPR format, if you told me today that CMC had no shot to come back this season, I would still trade him for Gibbs. Off the top of my head, Jordan Mason has a total of, I believe, 7 receptions in his NFL career at this point. Just not a pass catcher. Or in a full PPR format, obviously, you have a great receiving skill set for Gibbs. Mike says, PPR, Rico or Charbonnet? Let me pull up what we have with Kenneth Walker. Ooh, real quick, this is a random question, but as I'm searching Kenneth Walker, I see a Twitter ad for The Wild Robot. Has anybody seen this movie? Is it good? I guess it says in theaters tomorrow. I don't know. I'm a sucker for some animated movies. So if anybody has any new movie recommendations, let your boy know. Okay. So Kenneth Walker returned to practice for the Seahawks today. Get that 13 minutes ago. Dan Cable says he assumes Kenneth Walker will play against the Lions on Monday night. So if we knew for a fact that Kenneth Walker would be good to go, then I probably don't go with Charbonnet there, but it is what it is. Get says, my guy's drinking straight pickle juice. Yes, I need some salt in the system. That way we are able to... we were able to cut down the bathroom breaks. I don't want to have to be going pee 10 times this live stream because I'm chugging water too. Let's see. Sahil says, where do you have Sutton ranked rest of season? Very low, just because if you are looking at the Denver Broncos offense, we can go ahead and pull this up. But if you are looking at Denver, this is one of the lowest upside offenses that you could buy into. Sutton's had a lot of volume. I probably do need to be moving Sutton ahead of Judy, Shaheed. We'll move Sutton ahead of Judy just because now you're getting the consistent target volume for Amari, and at the same time, Judy's in a horrible offense. So we'll go Sutton up to, honestly, I'll move Sutton up to wide receiver 48 for you, but not super excited based off the offense that he's in. I think touchdown upside is going to be severely capped. Okay. Let's see. Anirda says, help me out, guys. Should I trade Mason and Leggett for Ayuk and Etienne? Leggett's a 0. Should you trade Jordan Mason for Travis Etienne and Brandon Ayuk? Then yes, probably. And I have a ton of Xavier Leggett in Underdog Best Ball draft, so I really hope Leggett comes out and crushes. But the reality of the situation is it's probably not a great offense going into the future. And at the same time, Deontay Johnson looks like he is going to be the guy seeing the majority of the target volume. Jonathan Mingo's projected out to be in a similar range. So I don't know. I can't go with Leggett. But let's move this back over and let's answer some more of the questions through flockfantasy.com here. And definitely want to reiterate, of course, if y'all wanted to get a guaranteed answer, you can always submit a question through flockfantasy.com. Just go over and go to the little comment button in the top right corner. You can submit a team review, trade question, start sit question, whatever you're wanting. You can submit it to me, or there are a bunch of other creators on the site you can submit it to as well if you wanted, or you can submit it to both. If you have a start sit question, go, I want to ask this for $3 for Mason and $3 for the guys at FSC. You can get answers from both people. But anyway, you can find that over on flockfantasy.com. If you wanted a team review, definitely want to reiterate the cheapest way to get it. And what I'd recommend is just taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog. Or if you go to the link in the live chat description or comment section and use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be getting that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard here for the Sunday game. And for tonight's game, you'll get a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard on top of that with code FLOCK. The 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 and the free team review on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure that you go ahead and you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog Fantasy. That way we are able to go through and we are able to credit you with that free team review voucher when Underdog sends me your email. But let's move this over to our next question. It's going to be a trade question here. It's coming out from Corips. Or so 10, something like that. But Jacobs versus ETN rest of season, I very easily prefer Josh Jacobs. I just think that you're going to have a significantly better offense here in Green Bay than what we should expect with Jacksonville. And while, yes, Emmanuel Wilson had the receiving touchdown this past week, actually, it's not a bad thing at all that you have both Marshawn Lloyd as well as A.J. Dillon on the IR here rest of season. I think Josh Jacobs is in a spot where he's going to have a large workload in a great offense. Now, Dillon coming out yet again says it's the only trade that might be accepted from my league mate. He ain't trading neighbors. In that case, I would just rather have DJ Moore and Zach Moss. I think DJ Moore and Brandon Ayuk are very similar for me rest of season. Whereas if you are looking at Zach Moss, this is a running back that is set up with a great role in Cincinnati. Good offense, seeing the vast majority of the work here. Now, Mello coming out. Here at wide receiver, we are choosing between Wilson, Roma Dunze, Deontay Johnson. We're going to be going with Wilson and Deontay Johnson, assuming that Deontay is good to go. Tight end, we want Cole Kmet. Going over to running back, we're going to be playing Jordan Mason. And honestly, Rachaad White, if Bucky Irving is healthy. And if Bucky Irving does miss, then we pivot over to Rachaad White. And then for the flex spot between Rachaad White and Roma Dunze, I think we go, honestly, dependent on the availability of Bucky Irving and Keenan Allen. It's very tough to answer this question right this second, where if Keenan's good to go, we expect the target volume to probably come down for Rome. And if Bucky, I think you probably end up having to go with Rachaad White. It sucks, but Keenan looks like he may play. Bucky Irving's banged up, didn't practice today. Bucky Irving probably will play, but I think Rachaad White's somebody that we can look at. Just to let you know, if you're copying and pasting your message in the live chat over and over again, you're probably going to get muted just for a bit. Just don't do that. It ruins the chat for everybody else, and you're not any more likely to get your question answered. If you want a guaranteed answer, you can always submit it through the site, of course. But Igbop coming out. This is Gibbs to Jacobs, downgrade. Adams to McLaurin, downgrade. Or let's view it this way. Gibbs to Chase, lateral move, up to you. Ramondre to Jacobs, upgrade. Adams to Terry, downgrade. I think this is a very fair trade and honestly gonna be up to you here. I think the Devontae Adams hamstring injury maybe evens us out if you think that Adams is a concern in Las Vegas. Obviously, there are the rumors that Adams may get dealt, but I mean, we've had these rumors for quite some time. Can y'all please spam the chat? Would you rather have the Jahmyr Gibbs side or the Jamar Chase side? Would you rather have Gibbs, Stevenson, Adams, or would you rather have Chase, Jacobs, Terry? We got one vote, Chase. Chase. Okay. Like I said, I was probably going to go Chase based off using the Adams hamstring as a tiebreaker. Looks like everybody in the chat is on the Jamar Chase side of this. I don't think it's that easy, to be honest with you. But, I mean, according to everybody in the chat, it is. So, yeah, let's go ahead and let's make the deal. Okay. Now, Cyrell coming out, wide receiver. We're choosing between Rice, Thomas, Godwin. Rashee Rice is the player that you have to go with. Tight end, Evan Ingram missed practice this week. Today. So you're going to be going with Isaiah Likely. Ingram probably doesn't play. And if he does, I want to trust him. And then for the flex spot, we are looking between Jordan Mason and Chris Godwin. I think you have to go ahead. I think you have to take Chris Godwin, even in a full PPR format, where you just have such a nice workload, especially going up against the Patriots, where right now the Niners are favored by about 10 points in this game. They should be able to run the ball consistently. But Jaquil coming out with a start-sit question. Here we are choosing between Wilson, Smith, Reed, Pierce. We're going to go ahead. We will take Garrett Wilson despite the tough matchup. I'm assuming Smith is going to miss, so we're going to go Jaden Reed over Alec Pierce. I think Jordan Love's going to play. And then down here for the flex spot, Devin Singletary is the best play. But because Singletary plays on Thursday night, you don't want to play Singletary in the flex. Instead, we'll put Singletary at RB2, and we'll go ahead and we'll put Jordan Mason in the flex. But Singletary has a great matchup today going up against a very soft Cowboys rush defense. Okay. So let's move this over to our next question. This one's going to be coming out from Mellow BR. Here, wide receiver 1, Amari Dell. Dell's missing. You have to go with Amari. I'm not playing Leggett, Mike Williams, or Romeo Doubs this week. Running back, Cam Akers, Swift, Braylon Allen, Algier. Joe Mixon wasn't at practice today. Neither was Dameon Pierce, so it looks like Cam Akers will be good to go. I think we just go ahead and we play Cam. And then down in the flex, right now we have Juwan Jennings in there. Obviously, Debo is back at practice. Kittle is back at practice. So maybe it looks like Juwan Jennings is a little less exciting. But if we're looking at the other options that we could potentially pivot to, I don't think you can go to any of these other players now that Tank Dell is going to be missing this week. So I think you go ahead and I think you have to take Juwan Jennings. Okay. So let's move this over to our next team. This is somebody that used that free team review voucher over there, taking advantage of the underdog offer. Thank you, my guy. Going to be excited to check this out. Says, hey, Mason, I'm 0-3 and off to a really rough start. But somehow it says that my team is ranked first in the league analyzer. Any ideas for some trades we can offer? Also trying to get my team back within roster capacity limit so I don't have to drop anyone. Well, while we are number 1 with the league analyzer, the gap between the top 5 teams, it's not really large, right? The top 5 teams are all pretty much identical. The 3 teams at the very bottom are much worse. What I like about this being an 8-team format is it is a league where we can start up to 5 wide receivers every week. So it is a league where depth maybe matters somewhat. But looking at the squad, I can tell exactly what we are needing to do here. Is this a league where you have to start 2 tight ends? No, it's not. Because, yeah, some of these teams only have 1. I thought this was maybe going to be a 2 tight end league. So the issue that we have with this team, my guy, is the construction that you have down here at the bottom end of the bench. For us to be rostering Kittle, Kelsey, Goddard, and Taysom, you cannot do this. You cannot roster 4 tight ends. You need to go ahead. You need to cut Taysom Hill right this second. And at the same time, I think when you have Burrow and Purdy here, depending on the amount of quarterbacks that the rest of your league mates are rostering, the CJ Stroud team only has 1. Looks like maybe the Kyler Murray team only has 1. So what? There are maybe 15, 16. Oh, no, we're looking at the wrong team. Thank you, Jemsa, for letting me know. Whew. That was a close one. Workaholics has some clear moves they need to make. And I think they should drop Purdy as well. Looking at our squad, on the other hand, no, we are sitting here with a little bit of a different situation. This is a team where at quarterback we have Stroud. We're only rostering 1 QB. I actually like that. Now, I will say, if we have no Collins, if we have no Dell, I wouldn't fault you at all for wanting to pick up another quarterback off the waiver wire. Like if Jared Goff's sitting out there on the waiver wires this week, and you could potentially pick up Goff, put him into play, I wouldn't fault you for going through and making a move like that, just given the fact that you should have subpar supporting cast in comparison to what you'd usually expect for CJ Stroud. Going over to running back, we've had the Kenneth Walker injury. We've had Rachaad White faceplant. We've had the Nick Chubb injury to deal with. So running back, this is a completely fine room, specifically in a 12-team format. 12-team format, I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh, we have so much depth. This is a great spot. We can go make some 2-for-1 deals. We're going to be golden. However, in an 8-team league, Kenneth Walker's not a top 8 running back. Montgomery may not be a top, like we have essentially like 3 borderline RB2, RB3s in an 8-team league. Obviously, 12-team format, completely different. But the bar is so much higher in an 8-team league. So the first thing that I would love to do is go and see if we could potentially entice this team with no running back depth, but the top-end RBs to give us a top-end option and a 2-for-1 deal. Where if we could potentially send them, say, Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker, and get back either Saquon Barkley or Breece Hall in an 8-team league, where Garrett Wilson would be their wide receiver too. They kind of need the depth here as well. I think that would be an absolute no-brainer trade for us to be able to make. And obviously, in general, we're wanting to make as many 2-for-1 deals as we can in that 8-team format. I'd be willing to do that with effectively any receiver that's not in our top 3 names here, such as St. Brown, Tyreek, or Marvin Harrison. And I'd be willing to do that with any running back on our team. The second thing is this team needs to give us a tight end, whether that's Kittle, whether that's Kelsey, whether that's Goddard, doesn't matter, but one of them needs to be coming over to our squad. I think the easy trade is approach him, go, hey, you want Deontay Johnson? Deontay Johnson would easily slide into one of their flex spots on this team and send them Deontay for either Kittle or Kelsey. Because I think that tight end is going to be a lot better than Evan Ingram in the long term. Well, at the same time, in the short term, we need a tight end to start anyway. If you're unable to make that trade, then at that point, you just go ahead and cut Quentin Johnston in an 8-team league. I think it would be an easy spot to cut him. And then pick up another tight end that we could potentially play instead of Evan Ingram for this week. But yeah, I think that this is the move we want to be making. We want to try to make a trade with this team. Whether that's the 2-for-1 deal where we package Wilson and Walker to get to either Barkley or Breece. Whether that's Deontay to go get to somebody like Kittle or Kelsey. And then obviously if you see another squad that we can construct a similar structured deal to, I think that would be advantageous for us. But thank you again for being a member of the flock, my guy. Really hope that I was able to help you out in some way here. But let's move this over. I do want to reiterate, once we hit 800 likes on this live stream, we are going to be pivoting over and answering some more questions in the free chat. So if you want to get some questions answered in the free chat, go down there, drop a like on this stream. Now let's move this over to our next start set. This is coming out from John. We have Amari Jefferson at wide receiver. If we wanted to get somebody in, we'd be benching Amari. We're not benching Amari for Xavier Worthy, though. Tight end, McBride maybe is going to miss. So obviously we play Parkinson if McBride does miss. Running back, if Walker misses, just an easy spot to play Charbonnet. But keep in mind, since Singletary plays Thursday night, you want to be a little more flexible. We actually want to put Kenneth Walker down here in the flex just in case anything happens. And then for the second flex spot, it's really going to be down between Worthy and Zach Charbonnet for us. I probably go Zach Charbonnet because if you think about this, with with the Seattle Seahawks playing on Monday night, if you were to plan on playing both Walker and Charbonnet, both running backs in your flex, if anything were to happen, then at that point, you're not able to just go for the 1-for-1 fill-in with Kenneth Walker. You would have to go and pick up just a gross option from the waiver wire to play randomly in your second flex spot that week. Whereas here, if we play Worthy on Sunday and then plan on Walker on Monday night, and if Walker does end up missing, then at that point, we could pivot over to Zach Charbonnet with relative ease. So I think this is the way we submit the lineup. But yeah, remember, don't put that Thursday night guy ever into the flex spot. Just make sure we throw him at RB2 just in case anything happens. Now let's move this down to Jason. It says Jacobs for Pollard and Pittman in a 10-team league. What are we doing? 10-team format. I'm just going to go ahead. I'll take the best player. I will take Josh Jacobs. Pittman doesn't really look startable at this point. Jacobs going to be in a significantly better offense than what Tony Pollard's in. I think Jacobs is a better running back than Pollard. And at the same time, I think Spears is better than Emmanuel Wilson. Now, Ethan coming out with the trade question. Here, this is Higgins and Avonte Adams versus Jordan Mason and Nico Collins. So looking at this, give me Nico over Adams. Give me Higgins over Mason. Obviously, both these receivers here are dealing with the hamstring at this point. I'd probably still go with the best player in the deal, which will be Nico. If it wasn't for both Adams and Nico Collins dealing with the hamstring injury at the same time, I think you could maybe pivot away from Collins. But the issue is clearly that this is a situation in which they're both dealing with the injury. Okay. Now let's move this over to a question from Hogan, always out here. This is Godwin and Justin Jefferson. If we wanted to pivot somebody in, the only option really would be Pittman, but we're not playing Pittman, of course. And then we have 3 flex spots. What running backs? So essentially the question is, do we get Travis Etienne into this lineup or not? I think we leave it as is under the assumption that we are going to have no Austin Eckler. So if you are looking at, say, Brian Robinson with no Eckler, he should be a full 3-down workhorse and an offense that projects to score more points than what you have in Jacksonville. Now, if Eckler were to play and Eckler's going to squeeze Brian Robinson for some of the receiving volume, then at that point, we probably pivot from Brian Robinson over to Travis Etienne. But let's move over and answer our next question here from Knackforce. So trade question, David Montgomery and Deontay Johnson versus Cooper Kupp and Shaheed. So Deontay to Shaheed's a downgrade. Montgomery to Kupp. I have Montgomery ranked higher right now with the Kupp injury. I think I'd rather just have the Montgomery and Deontay Johnson side. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat? Am I being an idiot here? Am I wrong? What side would y'all rather have? David Montgomery, Deontay, or Kupp and Shaheed? Christian, we no longer do super chats on the channel. If you want to get a guaranteed answer with a question, it's all through flockfantasy.com. But we've turned off super chats because flockfantasy.com is a much better way to go, because with super chats, we would get so far behind. I wouldn't be able to send you your answer personally here through the site. Even if we get far behind, you get sent your answer in case you have to leave the live stream, and you can ask them at any times. Okay, so it looks like most people are in with us on the David Montgomery side. We definitely have a few Cooper Kupps mixed in. But yeah, we're going to go with Montgomery. Now, let's move this over to our next team. This is a squad. J-Law, my guy, just let you know, you should be able to you should be able to link a sleeper team with flockfantasy.com. So definitely in the future, try to link if you can. If you're having any issues, please just send them in the site issues section of the Discord, and one of the developers would be really happy to help you out. But this is a free team review. Of course, if you wanted to get a free team review through flockfantasy.com, the best way you can do that is by taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog. Or if you go over to Underdog Fantasy, which is the link in the comment section and the link in the description, and use promo code FLOCK, you will be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK as well, you'll be getting an additional Patrick Mahomes free pick, more than less than half a total yard. You'll be getting a Dak Prescott free pick, more than less than half a total yard as well. And you'll be getting that free team review over there on the site. Just make sure you set up an account with flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your Underdog account. That way I'm able to go through and give you your free team review voucher when Underdog sends me your email. But dear God, okay, how are we going to be able to now? Oh, okay, God dang. The devs really cooked with this. We can drag on pictures here. Perfect. All right. Well, the way that this was sent, obviously, this is Full screen. Everybody gets to see it very, very clearly. This is a league where we are starting a total of 2 receivers and only 1 flex. Down on the bench, how many bench spots do we have? We have a total of 6 bench spots. So it's a league in which depth is not really going to matter much, and we are highly incentivized to have the best players that we can in this lineup. And yes, flockfantasy.com works on mobile. If you're having any issues, please send them in the site issues section of the Discord chat. Links in the description. Like I said, I just can't do customer support during the stream. But yes, this is the classic, what we call a one-man league. Because as we pull this up at quarterback, we have Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. So we are sitting here with 2 top 5 QBs. I do agree we want to start Kyler this week against Washington in comparison to Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts with no A.J. Brown, with no Devonta Smith. So let's start Kyler. Running back, we have Taylor as well as Bijan Robinson. So we have 2 top 5 RBs. We have Devon Achane, a top 10 running. We have 3 top 10 running backs. Going down to the bench, we have Kenneth Walker. This is an obnoxious team. How can we possibly make any moves with this team? Going over to wide receiver, we have Lamb, Chase. So we have 2 top 5 receivers. We have Waddle and Flowers, a solid wide receiver 2 options. Going over to tight end, we have 2 top 5 tight ends with Bowers and George Kittle. So this is just a monstrous squad where there is just absolutely nothing that I could say. I will obviously point out that any chance you get to make 2-for-1 trades with the team that's this good to improve anywhere inside your starting lineup, we go ahead and we do it in a heartbeat. If we could potentially sell, say, I don't know. Sell Jalen Waddle, sell Zay Flowers. These are the type of players that make a difference in a 12-team format, but specifically with however many teams that are in this league, they will just never make a difference. And we need to be trying to include them in a 2-for-1 deal to get an upgrade where we can. Whether that's Flowers and Chase to go get Amon-Ra St. Brown, let's go ahead and let's make that move, anytime we can, because I'm assuming there are great options on the waiver wire there as well. Also, I'd probably move off of Baltimore this week going up against the Bills defense. Should be a really tough matchup, but I wish I had more for you, my guy. I wish I was able to come out here and give you a really good insight on how we can make a much what am I supposed to say? It's a better trade. It's a better team than I've ever made in fantasy football. But let's move this over. And this one coming up from Anthony says, you reviewed the team yesterday. You told me to package Daniels and a running back to tier up. How did we do? I probably don't think we got enough value here, to be honest. If you were looking at Jaden Daniels based off what he did, I would have hoped that we could have gotten a little bit of a better running back than Travis Etienne. We are sitting here at quarterback, I'm assuming with a really strong option. If we said that, we have Kyler Murray, so I completely understand why we did it here. But I would just assume that we could have maybe gotten a little bit of a better tier up at running back than Travis Etienne. So I agree that we wanted to sell Daniels when we have Kyler, and you can definitely afford to do it when we have Kyler. I would have just assumed that we could have maybe had a little bit more value squeezed out of it. Now, looking at this is from Anthony. Happy to see us. Says, back again. You also mentioned I should package the receivers to tier up. This was accepted. Let me know. So, this is a league where you don't start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Here, we're in a spot where we have a phenomenal wide receiver room looking at the team. Like, we have 4 viable receivers we can start every single week. I still view Brandon Ayuk a tier ahead of what you have with Terry and Deontay. So with your team in this format, I like the deal. I think we go with Ayuk. But let's go ahead and let's get this team review going for Dirty Alaskan Girl. CD's nuts. Now, says it's a $4 team review. What this is I'm assuming CD's nuts actually ended up getting a free team review using the $10 Underdog promo with code FLOCK and just decided to tip $4 just in case anybody is confused. But thank you. Really do appreciate you and going to be excited to check this out. So saying, love the content, pretty happy with the team, but trying to upgrade at quarterback if possible. Just think I'm lacking the depth to do so. Or if I can improve somewhere else, let me know what you think. Thanks, man. No, thank you so much. Going to be really excited to check this out. So looking at the league analyzer, right now we are 4th, kind of in the middle of the road, right? Does look like the top 2 teams have a little bit of an edge over everybody else here. But this is a 12-team format where wide receiver depth doesn't matter. Obviously, it's not to say we don't want receivers, but it's just to say when we fill out our bench, we want running backs, because you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Now, moving this over, we are sitting here with Dak Prescott at quarterback. When we have Dak, completely fine with him. I definitely view him as a quarterback that is maybe a little bit more of a streaming option, where you're going to go ahead and you're going to be kind of just choosing whoever you think has the best matchup from a week-to-week perspective. If you think Dak Prescott has a great matchup, then that's cool. Let's roll with Dak. If you have somebody, say, like Jared Goff down there on the waiver wire, and you think Goff is a better matchup, we're going to go pick up Jared Goff, right? Doesn't have a ton of rushing upside. Obviously, the passing volume was crazy this past week, but not necessarily somebody that we are penciling in it as a must-start player every week into the future. Going over to running back at the top is questionable. Kenneth Walker as my running back 2, I love. Kenneth Walker as my running back 1, I don't. Going over to Zach Moss as my RB3, I love. As my RB2, I'm okay with. Charbonnet, quality depth piece for when Walker does miss. Benson, the premium handcuff. Roshan looks like he's expanding his role. Emmanuel Wilson, the premium handcuff here as well. So 100% when we don't have, say, the ability to build around those guys at the top, such as Breece Hall, such as Bijan Robinson, such as Saquon Barkley, what we want to be doing here instead is we want to go ahead and we want to roster as many running backs as we possibly can. So I love what we're doing here at running back. Wide receiver, we have the top end assets with Lamb, Harrison, Wilson, 3 wide receivers that we're able to start every single week, regardless of their respective matchups. We have Xavier Worthy down here as a wide receiver 4 with upside as well. So really like what we have at the wide receiver position, and I like the construction with what we have at running back as well. We have Kincaid and Kmet at tight ends. I would say if you could squeeze some value out of Cole Kmet, I know you're not going to be able to do this in most leagues, but if you could potentially go ahead and package together, say, Cole Kmet and one of our running backs, get an RB upgrade elsewhere, I think we would. Clearly, it'd be a no-brainer if we can go Walker and Kmet to get to Achane. This team has Schultz. They maybe want Kmet. I doubt they would accept the Achane trade, but maybe we could go Charbonnet and Kmet to go get Tony Pollard or go get Ramondre Stevenson. I think that those would be very interesting trades as well to just bolster up a running back for us a bit when we don't necessarily need the tight ends. Going over, who else needs some help at tight ends? Let's just sort this by best to worst tight ends. This team is Gesicki as their streamer. There's no way in hell we can get to Saquon Barkley. But maybe if you can go ahead and package together, say, Zach Moss and Cole Kmet to get to Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet and Cole Kmet to get to Jordan Mason, or either one for Travis Etienne, I think that would be a very interesting move if possible. But obviously, we're not expecting that to get done a ton. That is probably going to be something we need a gullible league mate to fall for. And as we're sitting here, this is just a great roster construction overall, where I don't necessarily think that there's much for you to do. I already like that we are churning the roster here really with those bottom mid running backs off the waiver wire, trying to find the next Jordan Mason, trying to find the next Zach Charbonnet, that player that we can comfortably project out as a top 12 option at the position based off an injury in front of them. So really like what we have here at wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. I think the only thing is maybe going through and seeing if we can squeeze out any value from Komet. But I'm assuming that those are going to get rejected. Go for it, though. Go for it. But it's a great team. I really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. Really hope you're able to get something from this. And, of course, if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But let's go over and get this start sit question going for Gloom. It says, who to start? Is it worth flexing Jawan Jennings? So wide receiver, based off the injuries to Nico and Dell, I think you actually have to play Stephon Diggs over... Well, we probably just go Diggs here, right? Yeah, I think you for sure go Stephon Diggs here for the flex. And in a full PPR format, considering the fact that Kenneth Walker does have a very good matchup. A very bad matchup going up against the Detroit Lions rush defense. What we probably look to do is bench Kenneth Walker if we can afford it this week. And yeah, if you can play Stephon Diggs in the flex spot, I would. I know Jawan Jennings obviously crushed, but seems like maybe Debo or Kittle may play. And I just expect the passing volume to be much better in Houston, and Diggs to have a massive target share with the injuries to the other receivers. Now, that Morris kid always out here says got offered Bijan and Ferguson for Malik and DK. What are your thoughts? As always, love the content. Really appreciate it, my guy. Here, I would rather have Bijan Robinson, to be honest. I think Jake Ferguson is a tight end one rest of season very easily. I'd very easily rather have Bijan over Malik Neighbors, paying DK Metcalf to go get that running back upgrade and go get a viable tight end at the same time. I know obviously Neighbors looks so damn good at this point. But yeah, getting Bijan and Ferguson there, assuming Bijan's good to go, I like. Bills Mafia, long-time member of the vlog, and be excited to check this out. This is Chase Ayuk at wide receiver. Tight end, we have Komet filling in for McBride. Running back, we have Connor and JT. So yeah, we are keeping all that the same. It looks like for the flex now, Tank Dell is going to be missing. So instead, we're really going to be choosing between Worthy, Dobbins, and Keon Coleman. I probably go with the guaranteed touches of J.K. Dobbins. Now, full transparency, obviously, we're not super excited about Dobbins, given the fact that, 1, you have the Herbert injury, 2, you have the Joe Alt injury, 3, you have a pretty tough matchup going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. But yeah, I still think you can go ahead and take J.K. Dobbins and just get the guaranteed touches in this offense. And we are 30 likes away from going through and answering the free questions in the live chat. So if you want a question answered for free in the chat, go down there and drop a like. Now, going over and getting this trade question done for Ladex. Says, got offered this trade, currently 1-2. Not sure if this would be worth to trade CMC away since I'm relying on Jordan Mason in the meantime. Not too many premium running backs. Or should I take the value of selling him off with uncertainty of how long his injury will linger or get even worse? Love the videos, daily watcher. Keep it up, my guy. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate you. I'm going to be excited to check this out. I know you're always hanging out with us. But anyway, looking at this, going from Hurts to Stroud, downgrade. London to Kirk, downgrade. Pivoting off CMC to Jamar Chase. I think we are getting the best player. We're a 1-2 team that needs points right now. I think we go ahead. I think that we take CJ Stroud. I think we go Stroud, Chase, and Christian Kirk. Can y'all please spam the chat? Would y'all rather have the CJ Stroud side of this trade or the Jalen Hurts side of this trade? Stroud, Chase, and Christian Kirk, or Hurts, London, and CMC? Yeah, there are no more super chats. Alex, if you want to get a guaranteed answer with a question, you can always purchase one through flockfantasy.com, whether it's a trade question, start set question, or a full-blown roster review. But looking at the trade, we got Hurts, Stroud, Stroud. Hurts, CMC, Hurts, Stroud, Hurts. So it does look like most people are going with the Jalen Hurts side. I definitely can see the argument for that. My thought process here is just specifically in the instance where you are a 1-2 team, we need points in right now. You potentially think CMC is not coming back rest of season. I'm okay with just going and getting the best player in Jamar Chase. Jeremiah says counter with somebody besides Kirk. Yeah, if we wanted to go through and see if we can get somebody besides Christian Kirk with this deal. Maybe we look at George Pickens instead. And if you get Pickens, maybe people are a little more excited about it. Because obviously Christian Kirk, with how bad the Jags offense looks right now, just doesn't even look viable. Okay. Now, Abe coming out with a start-sit question. Here at wide receiver, it's very easily Rashee Rice time. Devonta Smith will probably miss. I'm assuming Adams still going to play. Adams will be somebody to monitor. Just popped up on the injury report. We have both Njoku and Laporta. If they both played, we go with Laporta, but neither are at practice. So honestly, you're probably in a situation in which you're probably having to stream a tight end and pick up a tight end off the waiver wire. Going over to running back, Barkley must start name. Montgomery must start player as well. Going down to the flex here. I think I was probably too low on Singletary in the rankings this week with how good this matchup is going up against the Cowboys. I don't know. Do we play Singletary or Ramondre? Let's pull up what we actually have on Underdog with the pick'ems. Underdog pick'ems right now have Devin Singletary, higher, lower, 12.85 fantasy points. They have Ramondre Stevenson, higher, lower, 74.5 total yards. They have Ramondre less likely to score than Singletary as well. So yeah, it's such a good matchup for Singletary against the worst rush defense in the league. We probably go Singletary, and if you play Singletary, of course, you don't want to put him there at the flex just in case we get an injury later in the week. We go ahead and we put Devin Singletary there at RB2. So we have some more flexibility in case we do get some negative news later on. But thank you again. Really hope that we were able to help you out some here. Now let's move this over. And of course, if you have not done so already, hit that like button. Like we said, when we hit 800 likes on the stream, we will be firing up some of the questions in the live chat for free here. And you know what? We've actually already hit 800 likes on this live stream. So what we're going to do is there's still an hour and a half. Your boy kind of has to pee. So I'm going to go pee, give the voice just a 30-second break. And then we're going to come back and answer some of the free questions in the chat. So just give me 1 second. We are back in. I am sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But let's move over. Like I said, we're going to answer some of these free questions in the chat. So if you got them, drop them. Batapipe says, trade London, Montgomery, Shakir for Neighbors and Ford. So London and Neighbors upgrade, Montgomery to Ford downgrade. You're paying Shakir to get it done. I think you're getting the best player with Neighbors. I think it's a fair deal and honestly kind of up to you there. PC says Tank Dell or Roma Dunze. With the Tank Dell injury news, I officially moved Tank Dell behind Rome in my rest of season ranks. Let me go ahead and pull this up. My rest of season rankings, we have Roma Dunze, wide receiver 28. We moved Tank Dell down to wide receiver 37. Like with the Dell's size concerns, injuries are always a possible concern for him. Let me see if I can find like the exact reports for Tank Dell here. So ribs and wrist. Yeah. My thing with Tank Dell and why we were off of him in favor of Stephon Diggs this year is just the historical outlier that you had given his size. Where if you were going through and looking at what Tank Dell weighed coming into the NFL, Tank Dell is 165 pounds. Where we looked historically, and what we had found historically is wide receivers at that size just simply did not have top 12 finishes in fantasy football. It's actually funny is wide receivers 165 pounds or less. Tank Dell was the best wide receiver of that profile that you've ever had in fantasy as a rookie. So it's like very difficult to project somebody with that size to go out and give you that consistent volume without being an injury concern. Now let's move this over. Christian says, were you able to sell Ramadre on the flock team? I have him as my running back too, unfortunately, but the rest of the team is solid and sitting at 3-0. Well, congrats on being 3-0. And sadly, I tried my best to sell Ramadre Stevenson before week 1, after week 1, after week 2. After week 3, I no longer try to sell Ramadre because nobody was willing to trade for him anyway in the first 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, there's no way that anybody's trading for him after week 3. Okay. Now, Echo says trade Amari and Charbonnet for Mike Evans and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is not even worth a roster spot. So you're trading Amari and Charbonnet for Mike Evans. Kind of up to you and your team. My thing with Charbonnet is I think he's still kind of profiles. Like Charbonnet and Braylon Allen are about the same player. They're both running backs that if the starter goes down in front of them, they're immediately top 10 options at fantasy. You can play them when the starter ahead of them is good to go, but you're just shooting for, hoping for a touchdown. And it's by no means a guarantee there. But moving this over. Ant says trade Walker and Dell for A.J. Brown. I think I'd rather have A.J. Brown. I think I'd rather take the best player there. I'm assuming that we probably have no A.J. Brown. I think we have no A.J. Brown this week because he has the bye week in week 5. So you're probably going to go 2 weeks without Brown. But then he'll be fully healthy coming out of a bye and you get him rest of the season. Mondo says, do you need a MacBook to sync your team to review or can you use your phone? So you don't need a MacBook for sure. You can do it with any desktop. I believe with Yahoo and Sleeper, you can sync with flockfantasy.com just on your phone. To sync an ESPN team on flockfantasy.com, you have to get like, if your ESPN league's a private league, which it most likely is, you have to get like these weird little, I don't even know what they're called. So we had to build out like a flockfantasy.com ESPN Chrome extension. So I think you maybe have to be on a desktop to link an ESPN team to flockfantasy.com. But the good news is you only have to do it once and then you are linked rest of season where you don't have to worry about it again. But Slivian says Cowboys defense RIP. Obviously the Cowboys defense has been cooked in back-to-back weeks now at this point by the Saints and the Ravens. I think this is a get-right game for the Dallas Cowboys defense. The rushing defense looks horrendous, but going up against Daniel Jones, if you're ever going to be able to figure it out, this would probably be the week that you do so. Okay. So let's move this over. Travis says, flex Dowdle or Jerome Ford. Full PPR format, we probably still take Jerome Ford, where Ford does have the receiving involvement. Rico Dowdle, obviously, in a full-blown running back by committee, where it is very difficult to project him out. Crow says Zay Flowers or Trey McBride. Obviously, this week with McBride's injury, we go Zay Flowers. Rest of season, I think that McBride just gives you more value at tight end than Flowers does at receiver. So we're going to go with Trey McBride. But I think that we'll get back to the free questions in the live chat in just 1 second. We have to make sure we get through all the questions on flockfantasy.com before the game start. But of course, if you wanted to ask any questions over on flockfantasy.com, get yourself a guaranteed answer. You'd always do so with the expert advice button here in the top right corner of the site. And with this, you can get a team review, trade question, start sit question. Definitely, if you wanted that team review, I will reiterate, the cheapest way to get it would actually be taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, you will also get that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half total yard, and you will get a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard as well, going up against the Giants tonight. But if you wanted that free team review on flockfantasy.com after using code FLOCK and making that $10 deposit on Underdog, go over to flockfantasy.com, make an account with the same email address as your flockfantasy.com account. That way we are able to go through and accredit you with that free team review. Now let's move this over and let's get this next team review going for LGBTQB1. We actually have either reviewed your exact team before or somebody else with this exact team name. So it's trying to get a running back, couldn't win on the waiver wire. Who should we target and who should we sell here? I am very sorry, my guy, that right now we aren't syncing with NFL Fantasy. I think this is NFL Fantasy. If this is Yahoo, definitely you can sync it with the site and we can see the entire league next time. And you use a bunch of cool tools on the site too if you sync the team. But anyway, going to be excited to check this out. So this is a league where you're going to start two running backs and two wide receivers and a flex. So running back is going to be incredibly important for us here. Quarterback's going to be very important as well because it's going to make up a high percentage of our starting lineup output. We have Jalen Hurts, top 3 quarterback rest of season with relative ease. Obviously, we'll have to pick somebody up just to start them this next week. But in the long term, we should be perfect. I'm sorry, not this week. The week 5 with the bye. This week, maybe you're a little bit less excited about Jalen Hurts because you have no A.J. Brown. You have no Devonta Smith. Going down to the bench, we have no second quarterback. So, yeah, completely fine spot. I mean, we're just going to go ahead and next week, we probably drop Juwan Jennings to pick up another QB off the waiver wire. Now, going over to wide receiver, we are freaking loaded here. And if you're having an issue linking with Yahoo, anybody in this chat, please send it in the site issue section of Discord. That way the developers can help you out. And you can find the Discord link in the comment section, in the description. But looking at wide receiver, we have St. Brown. So locked and loaded. I mean, he's my wide receiver 1 rest of season, but top 5 option at the minimum. We have Nico Collins. Nico Collins, top 10 wide receiver rest of season here. Going over to what we have with the bench, we have the long-term upside of Worthy and Brian Thomas Jr. We have Malik Neighbors in the flex as well. So we have 3 top 10 receivers. Definitely play Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 2. Move Nico Collins down to your flex spot this week, just because Neighbors obviously is playing on Thursday night. So just in case anything happens, we don't necessarily want to have Neighbors locked in there. And instead, we would have an easier pivot to Nico if Nico was down in the flex. But overall, I mean, this is an absurd wide receiver room. I definitely think if we're looking at a player like Juwan Jennings, where you're in a situation in which he's actually going to be a better option in the short term than he will be in the long term, as in the long term, we are expecting Ricky Pearsall, we're expecting George Kittle, we're expecting Deebo Samuel to come back into this offense. I think it does make a lot of sense to prioritize selling Juwan Jennings if you are able to. Now, of course, that's going to be a big if. But if you're able to potentially go out there and package together, say, Juwan Jennings with another player on this team to get an upgrade elsewhere, I think that'd be an absolute no-brainer. Like if you can package together Juwan Jennings and Braylon Allen to somehow get to the running back tier of guys like Kenneth Walker, then it's a no-brainer to do that, of course. Now, obviously, if we go down the running back rankings just a bit, then maybe you're a little less excited, just to be honest with you, and look at the exact running backs that I'd be looking to make those trades with. So I would most likely be looking to make the Juwan Jennings and Braylon Allen deal for any running back inside the top 25, 26, 27 of these rest of season rankings. If you can go through any running back inside the top 27 of our rest of season rankings, maybe you don't have a site membership, and if that's the case, you probably won't see my rankings. You'll see the expert instead. And yeah, I'd say general, same rule. Top 27 in the expert rest of season rankings, which you should be able to see this for free on the site. I would make that 2-for-1 deal if we can. Obviously, it comes down to finding somebody that believes in Juwan Jennings, or maybe just needs Juwan Jennings this week, or simply we don't. Going over to what we have at wide receiver. At tight ends. We currently are sitting with Andrews as well as Cole Kmet. Maybe I am just stupid. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. But I actually did rank Mark Andrews ahead of Cole Kmet this week. Obviously, Kmet this past week gave you a better week than what we have seen from Andrews all season. But at the same time, I don't know if we can expect that Caleb has 50 passing attempts again. And at the same time, I would naturally expect that we probably get Keenan Allen taking some of these Cole Kmet targets. So could y'all please spam the chat? Who would you rather have rest of season? Not rest of season. Who would you rather have in your starting lineup this week? Would you rather have Cole Kmet, or would you rather play Mark Andrews against the Buffalo Bills? Cole Kmet or Mark Andrews this week in your lineup? Okay. Kmet. Mark Kmet. Mark Kmet. So it does look like a lot of people are on the Kmet side here as well. I would just be a little worried if you end up getting, say, I don't know, Keenan Allen back in the target share coming back down in this offense. Running back, we have Naji, Braylon Allen. Naji Harris, I think, is actually set up to crush with no Jalen Warren. Braylon Allen, premium handcuff back, just somebody that we can't really be starting at running back 2. We do have Jonathan Brooks coming in the long term. But yeah, if you were going to be making a trade with this team, I definitely think we try to take maybe the shorter term piece, such as Juwan Jennings, and move him in that 2-for-1 deal with a player like Braylon Allen, and go and see if we can get that running back upgrade both for the short and long term here at the same time. Trying to think if there's anything else that we should do. But outside of that, it's a great team. A lot of these players down on the bench do have upside, and I think will continue to get better. I think the main thing that we want to do is move Neighbors out of the flex, move him to wide receiver 2, move Nico Collins down to the flex in case anything happens. 2, if we can sell Juwan Jennings, the short-term piece, and get a long-term upgrade when we don't need Juwan Jennings right now, I would look to do that. And 3, I would also consider potentially playing Mark Andrews over Cole Kmet here. But really do appreciate you, my guy, and really hope I was able to help you out in some way. But overall, it's a team with a ton of value. Now, let's go ahead and let's get this start sit going for Glowing. Says, hey, Mason, is Jaden Daniels or Kyler Murray a big enough upgrade from CJ Stroud? Trying to trade for one. So I would be more interested probably in Kyler than Daniels, just because I think Daniels will almost be impossible to get at this point. And Kyler is averaging over 50 rushing yards per game, so you are seeing a ton of that rushing production from Kyler. Going over to tight ends, definitely starting Kincaid over Kyle Pitts. Should be a better offense. And I believe Pitts is only averaging about 4 targets a game right now. And then going over to the flex, I think you have to go ahead and you have to play James Conner. James Conner is set up to absolutely smash against Washington, where you actually have the highest implied team total of any team in the NFL this week for the Arizona Cardinals. So I think this week you're going to freaking just blow your opponent out of the water when we are sitting here with both Harrison and Connor. And if we were interested in trading for a quarterback, I do think that Kyler is an upgrade over Stroud. Christian, I did see the CMC news. Let's pull up the CMC news real quick. So obviously we had the CMC possibly going to be missing a couple months break earlier. But this is honestly what I look for all my NFL news. I would do this regardless if I was sponsored by Underdog or not. But McBride stays in concussion protocol, so McBride's probably going to miss. Rappaport, more of a matter of weeks before return. So this is what I would trust Ian Rappaport more than I would trust a random Twitter account called NFL Rumors. My assumption at this point, and obviously I have no idea, I could very easily be wrong, but my assumption at this point is we should expect to have no McCaffrey for about 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks would be my expectation. But here, checking this trade out for Kendrick Lamar. Is this the real kid? Obviously not. But anyway, we had Chase versus Connor and Cup. This is a league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. On the squad, we have Lamar, Kyron, Dell, Reed, Laporta. So this is a team that's struggling with injuries. I think the value in my mind is on the Jamar Chase side. But at the same time, I completely understand where you're coming from if you want to pick up 2 extra starters if you think Cup's coming back relatively soon. But in general, I would rather have Chase here. Okay. Now, next question. This is a start sit coming out from Carter. It says traded Richardson and Braylon Allen for CJ Stroud and Ray Davis. I really like that move. I have a Rich right now, and I would trade him for Stroud as well. But now considering who we put in the flex, it's maybe a Dynasty team. If this is Dynasty, it's even better. I mean, if it's not a Dynasty, we just have so many players on our roster. I'm looking at who we could potentially throw in here. I think it's really probably going to be Keenan Allen's in play. Not super excited about Keenan. It's either going to be Keenan or Sharp for us. Yoshi Vosh is definitely in play as well. Can y'all span the chat? Would you start Charbonnet, Yoshi, or Keenan Allen? Keenan, Sharp, or Yoshi? Keenan, Sharp, or Yoshi? Please let me know in the live chat. Keenan, Charbonnet. Yeah, Charbonnet, of course, if Walker's out, but I'm expecting the Walker probably plays. Charbonnet, Walker. Charbonnet, Keenan. Yoshi, Keenan. Charbonnet, Keenan, Charbonnet. I'm assuming that the Bears game's not Monday night, is it? I know that we have 2 Monday night games here. Let me just confirm. I believe the Bears game should be Sunday. Yeah, you have Lions, Seahawks, Dolphins, Titans Monday. Gross that we get a Dolphins, Titans primetime. But honestly, in that case, if we don't have Kenneth Walker officially cleared to play, you probably go Zach Charbonnet. But if Kenneth Walker is officially cleared to play as well as Keenan Allen is, then you go Keenan. But you could start Charbonnet and just go, what if Walker does miss? Now, going over to this next start sit question from Ray Charles says, happy Thursday, Mason. Richardson or SD for QB? Who's SD? Sam Darnold. Oh, we're going to go Richardson. Richardson has a really tough matchup against Pittsburgh. Obviously, Darnold's been on fire as well, but if it's a 4-point passing touchdown format, Anthony Richardson still gives you the rushing upside that Darnold doesn't. Now, going over to what we have with the flex, we have Smith, Judy. Smith can't play. Judy, not exciting. Brooks not coming back till next week. Zamir White, maybe cuttable. I think you go Xavier Worthy and we set up a prayer that we get a big play here. And actually, never mind. We may need to go Worthy in the wide receiver slot. Yeah, then we go Worthy at wide receiver. And then for the flex, this is where things get interesting, assuming that Devonta Smith misses. Can't trust Mostert. Chase Brown doesn't have a large role. I think you maybe go Jerry Jeudy. Xavier Legette maybe has the upside to turn into the guy with the Adam Thielen injury, but I definitely want to see the Legette role first, where Legette wasn't playing a ton this past week. So we go Jeudy for that second flex spot, but it's because Bucky's banged up. Brooks is out. We're assuming Smith is out. Raheem's banged up. So we're not super comfortable about it. Now, we are going to get this team review going for Jersey Jabears. It's the fourth team with the league analyzer. So we just traded David Montgomery for Tyreek Hill. Well, thank you, my guy. Going to be super excited to check this out for you. And phenomenal trade. Montgomery versus Tyreek, I think, is honestly a little close in the short term. Long term, if we assume that you have any shot at getting back Tua into this offense, I think you should be really excited. Now, going over to what the team's looking at right now, this is a league where we can also start 4 wide receivers from a week-to-week perspective. So if we can start 4 receivers, wide receivers even more important, including the depth. Starting at quarterback, we have the worst QB room in the league. We just have Baker Mayfield. We are effectively just going to be streaming the quarterback position every single week. Not the worst thing in the world. And if I was going to be streaming the QB position, I would definitely prefer it to be in a situation in which you do start up to 4 wide receivers, because their quarterback's going to make up a slightly lower percentage of our starting lineup output as well. Now, going over to running back, after the Montgomery trade, we are in a tough spot. Now we are in a situation in which we need to go through and we need to figure this out on who we're starting between Rico Dowdle, Tyler Algier, and Emmanuel Wilson. We're probably going to go ahead and start Rico Dowdle. Are we going to be excited about it? No, he's played about 40% of this team snaps every single week over the past 3. Now, obviously, it's hard to take too much away here, specifically given the fact that every game the Cowboys have played in, it's not that the Cowboys have gotten blown out in every game, but it has been a blowout in every game. Now, going over to wide receiver, we are currently sitting with Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Godwin. So 4 wide receivers we can be very excited to start every week. And we have a ton of depth beyond this as well. We have Jaden Reed, Cortland Sutton, Juwan Jennings, DeMarcus Robinson. So the first thing is, with this team being pretty garbage when it comes to what we have at running back, you need to drop DeMarcus Robinson, and we need to instead go ahead and look to pick up another running back off the waiver wire, go see if we can pick up somebody that's an injury away to turning into the next Jordan Mason, turning into the next Zach Charbonnet. We want to be rostering as many of those players as we possibly can. Now, going over to what we have with the other depth receivers, obviously, if we had the ability to go out there and trade away, say, Juwan Jennings, we for sure would. But the issue is, more likely than not, you aren't going to be able to get anything for Juwan Jennings here. So the actual situation you find yourself in is one in which I think that we probably need to be going ahead and we probably need to be selling one of the depth receivers that people will get actually excited about, such as Chris Godwin. Godwin is absolutely crushed. Nobody's denying that. I think everybody here would be very excited about Chris Godwin. But I mean, if you could potentially go ahead and look to move off of Chris Godwin and package him with Rico Dowdle, or just go get a running back of significance straight up for him. Like if you could sell Godwin, and you can go and check out the expert rankings on the site for free. And if you could sell Godwin for any running back that's inside the top 14 of these rankings, or maybe the top 13 of these ranks, I think it would be an absolute no-brainer for us, even in the league where the wide receiver depth matters a little bit more. Because if you look at the league analyzer here, we have by far and away the best wide receiver room, but we also have the worst running back room in the league. Going over to tight ends, where we have both Andrews and Pitts. Obviously, I would love to see if we could get some value out of one of these players, see if we could go out and make a 2-for-1 deal to upgrade elsewhere. But the reality is you're probably not going to be getting anything if you were to try to sell one of these tight ends. You're probably just going to be sitting with them in your starting lineup, not really making any adjustments. Now, of course, if somebody approaches you and they're going, hey, man, I'll give you, say, Kenneth Walker for Mark Andrews and Rico Dowdle, we do it in a heartbeat. But right now, nobody's trading for these tight ends. And reasonably, I mean, you can't blame them for it. So overall, I think that this is a really strong team with a lot of value, but we need to make adjustments. One, we need to cut DeMarcus Robinson, pick up another running back off the waiver wire. Two, we need to go out there and sell the wide receiver that's been absolutely crushing, that people will actually be excited about, and go get a viable running back in return. Go sell Chris Godwin for any of the top 14 running backs in the rest of season rankings on the site. And if we somehow were able to squeeze some value out of one of the tight ends, we would. But the reality is you're probably not going to be able to sell them for anything here. But I think that's all I got for you. Again, I really do appreciate you. I really hope I was able to help you out in some way. And as always, if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But let's move over and get this next team review going for Driz. And I do want to remind y'all, of course, if you wanted a start sit question, a trade question, or a full-blown roster review, if you wanted any of that to get answered in this live stream or the next live stream, whenever you want it, you can get all of it through flockfantasy.com. Over there on flockfantasy.com, just go up to the little comment button here in the top right corner, click expert advice, then you can get that team review, trade question, or start sit question. I do want to remind you, of course, that the team review will be much, much cheaper if you go ahead and take advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, or if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, which this is the link that you can find in the description in the comment section. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to be getting a free Patrick Mahomes pick for Sunday. You're going to be getting a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard for tonight, and a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000, and that free team review in one of these streams. Just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog. That way I'm able to go through, and that way I'm able to credit your account with that free team review voucher. But let's move this over to our next team. This is Driz's team. That is Where's the Oil? Going to be excited to check this out. Thank you so much, my guy. Says, hey, Mason, currently 1-2. Just traded Worthy and Braylon Allen for Jamar Chase. Absurd. Phenomenal move. I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why we are at the very top here in the live stream. I think that we can go ahead and we can say that is a certified steal, and your league mates have no idea what they're doing. Down bad at running back. Who should we target? Kyron owner is willing to trade. Thanks. Thank you. Definitely would be concerns with Kyron Williams going and trading for him right now, coming off the 3-touchdown performance. Obviously, it really would just be dependent on the actual price point that we would be paying here. But if we are looking at Kyron going into the future, this is a running back that is sitting in an offense with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Not only does it have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, but at the same time, you're in a situation in which you have no Puka Nacua, you have no Cooper Kupp. So this, I mean, if you're looking at what sportsbooks are saying this week with their projections, right now you're actually sitting, I believe, with the projection of like 18.5 points for this Rams offense. So I think you do have to be a little bit concerned about what you're going to have here, specifically with the offense for Kyron Williams. Not to say you shouldn't go out there and get him, but if you are, it has to be at a discount. Looking at the league settings, this is a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. We are for sure highly incentivized to build around the top end receivers and then build around running back depth. Now quarterback, we have Mahomes. Mahomes has been very bad. He did set a season high in terms of total passing attempts this past week, though. And I think we can honestly say maybe going into the future that the passing volume will still be there, especially now that you have no Isaiah Pacheco. So it does look like this team's going to be a little bit more pass happy in general. Going over to what we have at running back, we are currently sitting with James Cook at the very top. James Cook as my running back 2, I'm in love with. James Cook as my running back 1 is okay. Definitely not going to act like it's the worst thing in the world. Then beyond this, we have no running back 2. I'd start Rico Dowdle this week. But in terms of what we'd be looking at in the long term here, it's tough to know exactly what we should be expecting. Where we have Benson, Bucky Irving, Roschon Johnson, Emmanuel Wilson, Blake Corum. We have a bunch of random shots, right? These guys that could potentially turn into, say, I don't know, the next Jordan Mason, the next the next Zach Charbonnet, right? One of those players that if the injury occurs in front of them, then all of a sudden they are going out there and they are turning into must-start options for you. But at the same time, in the short term, it's very tough to project them out. Going over to wide receiver, we have 2 top 5 wide receivers in fantasy. We have St. Brown. We have Jamar Chase. Love to see it. We have Higgins as a viable flex. We have Rome here as well. We have Puka for the long term. I actually probably am not making any moves with this team. We have Xavier Legette. Definitely if there's an interesting waiver wire pickup, you can go ahead and drop Legette and pick up another running back. Just have one more shot to try to find the next Jordan Mason here with this team. But definitely not something that we are having to do because Legette does have the path with this offense being much better, while at the same time, us seeing the injury that you have specifically to Adam Thielen, Legette could be viable here. Going over to tight end, we have Pitts. I mean, Pitts hasn't been great, but at the same time, I do think we still view him as that player that you're starting every single week, just because while he hasn't been great, really no tight ends have been, so it's difficult to come out and say like, oh yeah, it's a Kyle Pitts issue. No, it's more of a positional issue. So if we're looking at what we could potentially do here with this team, I love the construction of what we are doing, considering that we have the elite receivers at the very top. We are chasing depth at running back. We have a top end quarterback, a top end tight end. We start Rico Dowdle this week, reevaluate where the running back position is with us next week. I don't want to sell a receiver for a running back specifically because we have the Puka Nacua injury. If you wanted to make a wide receiver for a running back move, I think it's very easy to go through and just cut Legette, pick up another RB. But yeah, of course we can reevaluate this after this next week, after we see what the Rico Dowdle workload looks like tonight. And once we are another week closer to the Puka Nacua return. But phenomenal team. I love what we're doing with the construction. I agree, running back 2's very soft right now. But what happens if Rachaad White gets injured? Then all of a sudden, the team is the best team in the league. James Conner gets injured. Our team's the best team in the league. DeAndre Swift gets straight up benched or injured. Our team's the best team in the league. Josh Jacobs injured. Our team's the best team in the league. Kyron Williams injured. Our team's the best team in the league. If you wanted to trade for Kyron, it would be like T. Higgins and Trey Benson, or Puka Nacua, Trey Benson, or T. Higgins, Rico Dowdle, Puka Nacua, Rico Dowdle. If you can get Kyron there, obviously it's an absolute no-brainer, but I'm assuming the Kyron owner is going to say no, and I'm not wanting to trade away St. Brown or Chase to get him. But I really do appreciate you and really hope that we were able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. And of course, if there's anything I do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But let's move this over. This is Starts It from Cowboys Nation. This is, hey Mason, mainly need help with the flex spots. So looking at the flexes, we're starting Yoshi and Zach Moss right this second. So here between Yoshi Vosh and some of these other receivers, such as Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, and Hopkins, I'm actually going to go Brian Thomas. I understand the appeal in Yoshi Vosh where he's been phenomenal, but it's a game where maybe we see the passing volume fall just a bit in Cincinnati since they're going up against Carolina. I think Higgins is still the wide receiver 2 here in the long term, where it looks like you're going to have no Evan Ingram in Jacksonville. And Brian Thomas, I think, could potentially be the wide receiver one over Christian Kirk. Now, Hunter coming out with the start sit question. Here we are looking at St. Brown, Shakir as our receivers. I would start Garrett Wilson over Shakir, even in a very tough matchup. Tight end, yep, we have Komet filling in for McBride. Going down to the flex spots, we have Braylon Allen and T. Higgins. Looking at what we have with Braylon Allen, this would be the guy that we'd want to get out. I'd probably play Shakir over Allen. Actually, no, we're going to go Kenneth Walker under the assumption that Walker is good to go. But definitely want to be putting Walker into the flex spot just in case anything happens where he's not playing. And if it looks like he's ruled out by the time we get to make that pivot, then instead we go ahead and we take Shakir. Okay. Now, Maximus Prime says probably a no-brainer to start likely at tight ends. Not too confident in the flex spot this week. Yeah, at tight end, Njoku's going to miss. I would go likely over Conklin. Obviously, Conklin had the great week this past week, but he was a complete dud in the first two. He's playing a ton of snaps, but still, I think you have more passing volume in Baltimore this week. Going over to wide receiver, we have Wilson, DJ Moore, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Deontay would be the best guy to get in here, possibly. Going down to the flex spots, we're looking at Ramondre Stevenson versus Deontay Johnson. I actually probably go with Ramondre. Deontay Johnson did miss practice this week. Does sound like he is going to be playing, but I mean, with Ramondre, you do pretty much get the guaranteed 15-plus touch workload. And now, C. Buffett coming out with our next start set. Says, kept Breece in the 6th round and traded for Ayuk after injuries. We're 3-0. Let's freaking go. Let's go. But anyway, looking at this wide receiver, here we're choosing between, we have A.J. Brown injured, Kupp injured. We're choosing between Deontay Jamison and Quentin Johnson. We're going to go with Deontay Johnson here. Like I said, he did miss practice, but he is supposed to be good to go for this next week. And we are about to get to some free questions in the live chat for everybody. Let me run through a couple more of these trade questions and start sit questions, and then we'll get back over to the free live chat questions. But at the flex between Chuba, Steele, Jameson, I think these are the main 3 names that we are looking at. If Kareem Hunt is inactive this week, we go Carson Steele. If Kareem Hunt is active, we go Chuba Hubbard. As obviously, it would be difficult to know exactly what the running back split's going to be if Hunt is good to go. Now, let's look at Acer's trade question. This is Malik Neighbors versus Garrett Wilson and Xavier Worthy. So I do have Malik Neighbors ranked ahead of Garrett Wilson here. I have Neighbors wide receiver 10, Wilson wide receiver 11. It looks like the experts on the site agree with that as well. Saying from Austin, Texas, I work at Dick's if you need a discount. Are you saying Dick's at the Domain? My guy, that's where I go all the time. I will be going. I'll be going, hey, is Acer Vontes here? I'm going to be asking everybody, but if it's the Dick's at the Domain, I'm there all the time, my guy. But anyway, says, I got you. He keeps bugging me at work for Neighbors. So obviously, fellow Austinite here, I understand wanting to go ahead and wanting to take Xavier Worthy. Getting in the Texas Longhorn, getting in someone that we want to root for, I think is in a good spot considering what we have with no Hollywood Brown rest of season, a little more passing volume being there in KC as well. This is close. Can y'all spam the chat? Would you rather have Malik Neighbors or Garrett Wilson and Xavier Worthy? This is a 12-team league, it appears, where we can start up to 4 wide receivers from a week-to-week perspective. I need to stop saying from week-to-week perspective. I need to stop saying it. I need to stop. Please start making fun of me in the live chat when I'm saying from a week-to-week perspective. Start making fun of me in the chat, so I'll stop. We look like we're pretty loaded with our squad. We got Neighbors, Wilson, 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 Neighbors, Neighbors, Neighbors. Wilson, Neighbors, Wilson, Neighbors, Wilson. So it does look like it's split exactly 50-50. If this was a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I'd probably take Malik Neighbors. With this being a league where we can start 4 wide receivers, I think we're going to go ahead. I think we're going to take Garrett Wilson and Xavier Worthy. Okay. When in doubt, we go Rodgers and Mahomes over Daniel Jones. Now, moving this over, our next question's coming out from Tefis Rob. This is Montgomery versus Pitts and Brian Robinson. We're 0-3 short at running back. Our other running backs are Spears, Chase Brown, Roshan Foreman. Kelsey's the other tight ends. If Kelsey's the other tight end, I am completely fine with us making this trade for Montgomery. There may be some other running backs that I would want to go ahead and I would want to potentially pivot to instead. But Montgomery's actually getting work as a receiver here. Much more work than I was expecting him to have coming into the season. So, I mean, he has looked fine. I mean, he's looked more than fine, obviously. Okay. But let's move this over to our next spot. This question's going to be coming out from Alex. Here we're looking at Roshan and Puka versus Moss and Shakir. Roshan and Moss, massive upgrade. Puka to Shakir, massive downgrade. If you can't afford to wait for the long-term value, I go with Puka Nacua. That's if you can't afford it. Obviously, there may be an instance where you're in a team where you're going, man, I'm 0-3. I really need a running back I can start this week. Not only did I have the Puka Nacua injury, but at the same time, I also have the injury to say, I don't know. We also have the Isaiah Pacheco injury, so we need a running back fill-in. And that environment, I completely understand wanting to go out and wanting to just take the productive running back with Moss and Shakir. But I think we take the best player in the deal, which is Puka. But let me answer some of the free questions that we have in the live chat real quick. So if you have any questions, go ahead, drop them in the chat, and we can get to as many as humanly possible. Michael says, depends on the week-to-week perspective. 100% depends on the week-to-week perspective. Pixel says, would you trade White and Charbonnet for David Montgomery? If it's a shallower format where you're going to be able to pick up an additional option that you like off the waiver wire, then yes, I think you can look to. With that being said, it's not like the easiest call in the world. Because even with Walker coming back in, I mean, Charbonnet does still give you the desperation play. And on top of that, he does give you the premium handcuff appeal. So I probably would, but it's not a no-brainer for me. Isaiah says Jordan Mason and Xavier Worthy for Garrett Wilson. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson. Miguel says, do we sell Jordan Mason or just ride with him? If you're looking at Jordan Mason, I think it really comes down to your exact roster. If you're in a situation in which you're saying, if I sell Jordan Mason, the guy I move from my bench to my starting lineups, David Montgomery, I'm going to be just fine at running back, and we're able to package Mason and a 2-for-1 deal to allow us to go from a wide receiver 2 up to Justin Jefferson up to Amon-Ra St. Brown, then yes, I think you go ahead. Then yes, I think you sell Jordan Mason. However, on the other hand, if you're in a situation in which you go, I sell Jordan Mason, and all of a sudden Bucky Irving's my running back too, then hell no, you got to hold on to him. Christian says, I use code FLOCK for Underdog and use the same email for flockfantasy.com, but I don't have the free team review. How can I do it? If you just did it right now, my guy, it's going to take until tomorrow morning. So what Underdog does is every morning, Underdog sends me a list of the email addresses that signed up with promo code FLOCK and made that $10 deposit. And then I go ahead and we upload that list of email addresses on flockfantasy.com, and any account with an email address that matches, we credit with the free team review for yours truly. So if you just signed up, just give it a little bit of time, give it until the morning, and then you should have your free team review voucher. Seabass says, has to be a new account? No. So the Underdog account, yes, has to be a new account. The flockfantasy.com account doesn't have to be one. Say you go, Mason, I set up a flockfantasy.com account last year, and I'm going to sign up for Underdog now. Just sign up with the same email, and we can give that old account of yours on flockfantasy.com the free voucher. Let's move this over. Wait, what? Let's move this. Scar says, trade James Conner for Kenneth Walker. I probably would rather have Kenneth Walker over James Conner rest of season. Would I really hope? Here's what I'm going to do. There's no way the domain guys are watching this right now. They're probably streaming. Do not tell them. For the love of God, if y'all tell, I'm not going to be able to tell you all my plans in the Flock League if y'all snitch on me. Here's what's going to happen. James Conner is going to crush the Commanders this week. Great matchup. Phenomenal matchup. Kenneth Walker may struggle against the Lions in a really tough spot. And then your boy's going to approach Avery from the domain crew. And we are going to go, man, I'll give you James Conner for Kenneth Walker. So I do think you have the upside for Walker rest of season. But we definitely need to make sure that we are getting through all the teams before the game starts. So this is Toby's top team. This is one of those free underdog submissions. And yeah, of course, like I said, you can always submit any trade question, any start sit question, anything you have like that over there on flockfantasy.com. Just go to the little comment button that says expert advice, then click team review, trade question, start sit question, whatever you want. If you wanted that free team review like Toby's top team here, definitely take advantage of the offer that we have on Underdog Fantasy, where if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, which is the link in the description and comment section, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with code FLOCK on Underdog, you will also be getting that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of it, you'll get a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard for the game tonight. So yeah, you can find that link in the description and comment section. And use code FLOCK so you get that free team review like Toby's top team. But says, recently found your channel and loving the content. Thank you so much. I'm mostly concerned about the receivers and not having a clear wide receiver one. I was considering trading CMC plus one or both of the receivers to upgrade, sitting at 1 and 2 right now, and would love any advice. So looking at it, yeah, we are right now in the middle of the league analyzer. I mean, there are those teams at the top that are having a significant leg up over us. Good news is it's a 10-team league where you start 2 receivers and 1 flex. So depth doesn't matter. Looking at what we have at quarterback, tight end, love to see it. In a 10-team league, we're going to start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. I would love to prioritize getting the elite quarterback, getting the elite tight end. That's exactly what we have here with both Jalen Hurts as well as Dalton Kincaid. Don't need to roster backups. Obviously, we are chilling as is. Now going over to what we have at running back. We are currently sitting with Alvin Kamara, an elite RB1, somebody we can start every single week. RB2, we have Jordan Mason as a short-term fill-in. We have McCaffrey for the long-term upside. We have James Conner as a player that's going to smash for us in the flex spot. We have Braylon Allen, Austin Eckler, Ezekiel Elliott as premium backs. If the starter would go down in front of them, then all of a sudden they are extremely exciting. And going over to receiver, we have Devontae Adams, Drake London, JSN, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Demarcus Robinson. So wide receiver, definitely a weak room in a 10-team league. 12-team format, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it. But in a 10-team league, to have Adams as my wide receiver 1, I really don't like. London wide receiver 2, I'm completely fine with. JSN wide receiver 3, I'm fine with. Hopkins wide receiver 4, I'm fine with. But it does feel like we are missing out on that true alpha wide receiver 1. With that being said, if you could potentially sell, say, the combo of Braylon Allen and Devontae Adams to go pivot to a true alpha receiver, to go get Chase, to go get St. Brown, to go get Jefferson, hell, to go even get Tyreek Hill, I think you could go ahead and potentially buy low on Tyreek at this point under the assumption that we get Tua back in the long term and we pick up that elite asset at a potential discount. But outside of that, I mean, there's not much else we can say. I would definitely say that next week when Jalen Hurts is on bye, we're going to go ahead. We will cut Demarcus Robinson and we'll pick up another QB to fill in for Jalen Hurts, but not something that we are having to worry about right this second. Trying to think if there's anything else that we can do. I don't see anything else that makes a ton of sense here, my guy. I think just maybe going and seeing if we can take one of the depth running backs. I think Braylon Allen's the super hot name right now that people will be excited about. Package him with Adams, go get the wide receiver upgrade. And then also maybe we just open a barrage spot to pick up Jalen Hurts' backup for the bye week next week for free. But if we have to go ahead and we have to drop somebody, Demarcus Robinson is the first guy to cut. But yeah, main thing is obviously we need CMC back for the squad, but we have Jordan Mason to play in the short term, so it's not a big deal. But make sure we're playing all 3 running backs this week. Throw James Conner in the flex. James Conner's going to crush in a great matchup here. But Turner coming out with a start sit question. Here, wide receiver, we have 2 top 5 receivers. We have St. Brown and Lamb. Going over to running back, as our RB2 here, we are in a tough spot. I think we go Braylon Allen. Bucky Irving's banged up. Spears in a low-scoring environment. So, yeah, I mean, running back 2 is definitely questionable for us. But, yeah, wide receiver, we are crushing. And then if Devonta Smith misses, then at that point, we probably go ahead and play Darnell Mooney. But obviously, if Smith is good to go, we play Devonta Smith. Okay. Now, Seawood coming out with... Why is it Sandfield update status? We may have to go back to that. But Seawood coming out with a team review. Going to be really excited to check this team out for you, my guy. Says, sent Jennings and Jamison for Goddard and Ford. What other moves can we look to upgrade? So this is the shrimp fried rice team. This is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. If it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 8-team league, every trade we make is about getting the best player in the deal. Every single one. Juwan Jennings in this league holds no value. Jerome Ford holds no value. To go get Dallas Goedert, a tight end that is a viable play for us this week, honestly, a top 3 tight end with no A.J. Brown and no Devonta Smith, I think it makes a ton of sense, especially if we just need the short-term fill-in for Trey McBride here. So yes, let's make that trade for Dallas Goedert. Love it. Going over to quarterback here, we are sitting with Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields. Now, I just went through and I actually just traded for A-Rich, specifically in a 12-team format, thinking that Anthony Richardson could potentially be a quarterback that does get a little bit of a bounce back, where you are looking at him with the rushing upside still. Obviously, the passing volume isn't going to be there, but still at the same time, we can say, okay, well, if you have the rushing upside, even if the passing volume's not there, even if he's a bad real-life quarterback, he can maybe be a top 12 guy. Issue is specifically in an 8-team league. Don't like this. We are streaming quarterbacks if this is our QB room. Going over to running back, we have Gibbs, Kyron, both of whom I think is our RB1s in an 8-team league. Really like it. We have Robinson, Steele. Going over to receiver, we have Rice, who is clearly a wide receiver 1, even in an 8-team league. We have Olave, Evans, I think are quality wide receiver 2-3 options. But the thing is, 8-team format, the depth beyond here doesn't matter, right? Like Jamison, Pittman, Jawan, as you already did, going and making that trade for Dallas Goedert. Any way that you can take one of these receivers and make a 2-for-1 deal to go get an upgrade elsewhere in the lineup, we want 100% do it. So if that means we're going and getting Dallas Goedert for that short-term fill-in, I think it makes sense. If that means we can trade Michael Pittman and Anthony Richardson to potentially go out and get, say, Joe Burrow, we 100% do it. Let's go ahead and let's make that move. Now, obviously, that is going to be very dependent on what your league mates in this league are willing to do. It looks like they actually do value wide receiver depth, which does make sense. Is there a team in this league that has 2 solid quarterbacks? Can we go offer somebody, say, Jackson Smith-Njigba and Anthony Richardson to go get Kyler Murray? If we could possibly pull off that 2-for-1 deal, that's an absolute no-brainer. With the additional roster spot that we would open up, I definitely prefer picking up a running back like Braylon Allen. Specifically in an 8-team league, I'm going to prioritize running backs off the waiver wire rather than wide receiver. Those guys that potentially, if you were to see that injury to occur in front of them, then all of a sudden they could turn into must-start options. But I think that will be the main thing that we are looking to do here, my guy. It's a great team, especially at the running back position. I love the Dallas Goedert trade, but let's see if we can upgrade over A-Rich in an 8-team format. But let's go ahead. We're going to speed up these questions just a bit because we have an hour until kickoff. This is going to be Taylor and Keenan Allen versus Breece Hall. I would very easily prefer Breece here, considering the fact that Keenan is a depth receiver that you have no idea what you're going to get from in a 10-team league. Going over to Dylan's question. Dylan, always out in the chat with us. This is Moss Debo versus Chris Olave. I think we're going to go ahead and we are going to take Moss and Debo, where I do still view Moss as that undervalued running back, where you can go ahead and honestly can be excited about the role that he has and what should be a very strong offense going into the future, where he has 90% of the opportunity. Okay. So moving this over, and let me answer some of the questions that we have in the live chat right now. Okay, so yes, one, hit that like button if you have not done so already. Helps us out a ton. I think we are closing in on 1,000. Would be massive. Okay. Second thing here, Mark says Dallas or the Giants for my pick'em tonight. I think you are having to take Dallas over New York. I wouldn't be surprised at all if New York does cool off a bit. Caleb, definitely trying to get to as many team reviews as we possibly can here. Let's move this over. Thrill Shot says, I have an offer out right now. I give up Mason, Olave, and Irving. I get back Amari and Bijan Robinson. Assuming Bijan is good to go, I think you 100% have to go with the Bijan side. 100%. Okay. Moving this over, Roland says Wilson, Allen for Lamar and Rice. Allen to Lamar, downgrade. Wilson to Rice, upgrade. I'm going to go with Lamar and Rice there. Okay. It's in says Dobbins or James Conner. I would both prefer James Conner in the long term. And at the same time, I'd rather have James Conner this week relatively easily. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's take James Conner. I mean, Conner this week, I understand that he was disappointing last week, and it's 100% my fault. Like, we did rank James Conner too high. I didn't take into account how good this Detroit Lions defense is. Specifically stopping the run. But this week going up against Washington, you have the highest implied team total of any team in the NFL this week for the Cardinals. Okay, but let's move this over. And what we are going to do real quick on the site is we are going to prioritize the start sit questions and the trade questions over the roster reviews just for right now, because we need to make sure that we can submit everybody's starting lineup before the Thursday night game. So here for Kath Reg at tight end, we are going to go Freiermuth over Laporta. Looks like Laporta is going to be missing this week. Running back Mason and Jahmyr Gibbs will be must-start players for us. Sucks that we have to bench Montgomery, but I think we have to throw James Cook in the flex spot as well. And a wide receiver, I mean, this is just an obnoxiously good team. I would look to go ahead and I'd look to honestly make a 2-for-1 deal in this team, looking to sell one of these depth running backs like Montgomery or James Cook. But let's move this over to our next one. This is from Mahogan. This is Braylon Allen, Devin Singletary, or Jerome Ford. Looking at these three backs, I think if we had to start two, I'm going to be going with Singletary and Jerome Ford. But yeah, definitely next time, my guy, just put in two running back slots. That way I can just go ahead and fill it out for you. Now, 44 MSU says, I have St. Brown and Marv. So this was mainly a flex option while opening up a bench spot. Also, hold or sell Jordan Mason. I think we're going to hold Jordan Mason for now. I actually just bought Ladd McConkey, but I would love to pivot over to DJ Moore by using a 2-for-1 deal there to get that upgrade. So let's definitely go ahead and let's take DJ Moore. Now, Big Vic coming out Jonathan Taylor versus Tyreek Hill says Jones and Dobbins would be my running backs after the trade. We have Waddle as well. So if Jones and Dobbins would be our running backs after the deal, I don't really feel too comfortable having Jones as RB1 or Dobbins as RB2 here. So I think we prefer to go ahead and we prefer to take Jonathan Taylor and Tyreek. Now let's move this over. This is going to be a roster review. We're going to get back to the roster reviews in just 1 second. I want to make sure that we can get all the start, sit, and trade questions done for everybody. Benny says, is Keenan worth the hopeful season-long value for Mason? Thanks, man. Love all the new work. No, thank you so much. And no, Keenan Allen's not close to being worth this. Caleb Williams doesn't look nearly as good as what you were hoping to. While at the same time, if you are looking at the expectations specifically for this offense here in Chicago, I would expect that DJ Moore's wide receiver 1, Rome Odunze's wide receiver 2. So I would rather just have Jordan Mason, who looks to be an RB1 for the time being. Now, Joe Wood Hoodie, longtime member of the flock, says, help me, my flex spots don't really know who to put in other than Chuba and Rome. Okay. So for the flex spots here, I think that I agree with you. Rome needs to be started, even if you have Keenan Allen good to go this week. And then for the last spot between Keon Coleman, Zach Charbonnet, and DeAndre Hopkins, I think we go with Charbonnet with the hopes that Walker misses. And if Walker does play, you could potentially pivot over to DeAndre here because they both play on Monday night. But we are going to actually get this next question going from Dimple. This is a start-sit question here. We need to pick somebody for the flex where we have Bucky, Alan Lazard, Ladd McConkey, Zach Moss, Gesicki, Christian Watson, Cooper Kupp, Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason is very easily the play. I mean, this is a phenomenal squad. I would love to get maybe somebody down here on the bench like Zach Moss in the lineup. I can't start Moss over Gibbs or Brees either. Great team. Now, Zach's coming out, says 1 and 2 start after losing Puka, Debo, T. Start 3 receivers, and my current starters are T, JSN, and Shakir. Okay, so looking at this, I think we're going to go ahead and upgrade from T. Higgins to Stephon Diggs. Going from Stevenson to Pollard's a slight down. I think it's definitely the Diggs side, especially on a 1 and 2 team where you just have the injury to Nico and Dell. So it looks like Diggs is absolutely going to crush. Now, Jordan looking for a start-sit question here. Wide receiver, we are going to be going with Jefferson as a must-start play. We go Higgins, yes, over Deontay Johnson with Deontay missing practice this week. Running back, we're going to go with Kamara and Jacobs. I'm actually very excited about Jacobs getting love back in. And then for the flex spot, we are just going to take Ramondre Stevenson with the guaranteed workload. If you really wanted to go Deontay Johnson, I wouldn't fault you for it. But Deontay missing practice on a Thursday is a little concerning, to say the least. Now, Tommy, this is Bucky Irving and Javonte Williams versus Jonathan Brooks. We got word that Brooks looks like he may be back either this week or next. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead. I will take Jonathan Brooks here with a decent amount of confidence. Now, this is coming out from J Lops. This is 1-0 to start between Kyler and Hurts. We're going to go Kyler Murray this week with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both banged up, and a great matchup for Kyler. And then also Bowers or Kittle. With Kittle being injured, even if he does play, I think we just play it safe and go ahead and take Brock Bowers. And yeah, completely okay submitting it this way. Like I said, it's just easier if you like only put one quarterback and then you load Kyler and Hurts there, so I can click them and it will send it to you through the site as well. Now, Starvin Marvin coming out trading. I'm hurting that tight end. The guy I wanted to trade with has Ferguson and Goddard. Who do I trade to get? So to be honest with you, rest of season, I still probably prefer Andrews over Dallas Goedert. I think we go with Ferguson over Andrews, but I'm definitely not paying Naji Harris to get it done. So I think the winning side of this is Naji and Andrews. If we are looking at one of these two tight ends rest of season, give me Ferguson over Goddard. Give me Goddard over Ferguson this week. But rest of season with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are back in. I want Ferg. Now, Eric coming out with a trade question. This is Etienne versus Mostert and Hawkinson, especially with the injury that you have. The injury that you have to Tua with how bad this Dolphins offense is going to be. I don't see the path for upside for Mostert. I just go with Travis Etienne. Now, Samson Itis coming out with a start-sit question. We're looking at tight end between Kelsey and Kittle. If Kittle is fully good to go, or Kittle did practice on Wednesday, I would play Kittle over Kelsey. And then down for the flex, when we're looking at Debo, Najee, Singletary, Kelsey, Williams, Jawan. I think we're going to go Naji Harris, where it does look like you actually have already had Jalen Warren ruled out. And at the same time, it's a really good matchup going up against the Indianapolis Colts for Naji Harris. Now, Sheffrey coming out with the start sit question. Here, wide receiver, we're choosing between Keon, Garrett, Tyreek, Nico, Smith, Jawan. We're going to go ahead. We will take Nico's. It's tough. If Nico misses, we go Tyreek and Garrett Wilson. If Nico plays, we play Nico over Wilson. Wilson is a very tough matchup. And then going down to the flex, obviously we go with Nico Collins if we can. And if not, we go ahead and we take David Montgomery. But right now it does appear that Nico is dealing with that hamstring, and it will be something we have to monitor. Now, like I said, we'll get back to the team reviews in just 1 second. We actually are going to have to get to this team review first, though, so we can load more. So we will mix in a team review. We're going to be prioritizing the start set questions and the trade questions right now so we can answer everybody's before the game starts this Thursday. But of course, like I said, if you want one of these free team reviews like Team Venezuela has, or if you want any question answered through flockfantasy.com, you can find the way to do it on flockfantasy.com with that button, the expert advice button. You can get a team review, trade question, or a start set. But if you wanted that team review, definitely what I'd recommend for you to do is actually go over to Underdog Fantasy. We're over there on Underdog. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you'll get that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard. You'll get a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard as well. And if you use the same email address on Underdog Fantasy and flockfantasy.com, you'll get a free team review voucher for a team review in one of these live streams. But Venezuela coming out says 2-1, but felt like it's a 0-3 based off the team's performance and injuries. We had Aaron Jones and Garrett Wilson and traded for Lamb, Steele, and Braylon Allen. Phenomenal trade. I'm traded Waddle for Najee. Not extremely happy about it. I think it makes a lot of sense with a Warren injury. Jump from 10 to 5 with the league analyzer. Yeah, I think that 100% that's going to be moving you up. But it looks like that's probably with the expert values. With my values, personally, you're sitting here at 8. This is a league where we're going to start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So I think you are highly incentivized to have a top-end quarterback and a top-end tight end if we can. Right now, we are currently sitting with Jordan Love and Sam Darnold. So looking at both these QBs, they are just pretty much streaming options. I think that this is a spot that you only need to roster both of them. I'm sorry, you only need to roster both of them if you think that there will be an instance where you're benching Jordan Love. If you think Love is a tough matchup this week, Sam Darnold is a great one. If you see yourself playing Darnold over Love, then sure, roster 2. If not, if Jordan Love does play this week, you could drop Sam Darnold. We're going to need to open up another spot so we can find a tight end to play over Njoku. Going over to running back, we are sitting with Jacobs, Naji Harris. So we have a low-end RB1, a mid RB2, and now that you have the Jalen Warren injury. We have Steele, Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving is all viable running back depth pieces here. I actually love this running back room. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, Flowers to play. Deontay Pops for the flex for us. We still have Puka for the long-term upside here. Shakir is a wide receiver that obviously has been trending in a great direction. Couple different things. One, if you could potentially sell. Actually, I don't even want to do that. Once Puka is back, then maybe at that point, Shakir becomes an expendable piece where you could look to make a 2-for-1 deal to upgrade elsewhere, particularly at quarterback in this league. But honestly, you're probably not going to be doing that right now as we are waiting for Puka to come back in. So we need the depth. And honestly, I think the main thing that we probably look to do is if Love does play, we're going to go ahead. We'll drop Sam Darnold to pick up another tight end off the waiver wire. Whereas if Jordan Love were to miss, then at that point, we're probably having to drop, I don't know. Then we're at that point having to make a 2-for-1 deal ASAP so we can pick up another tight end to play instead of David Njoku. But really do appreciate you and really hope that we were able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. But let's move this over and we're going to have to back out to get to some more of these questions. Like I said, I am sorry, but we are skipping over the team reviews right now just so we can get to as many of the start set questions, trade questions as possible. Michael, longtime member of the Flocks, has been watching since the Amari, Beckham, and Watkins jerseys were in the background. Much love, my guy. Really do appreciate you. At running back, looks like we'll have no Mixon. Honestly, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play Akers. Akers had the role. It was a horrible matchup and a horrible game environment against the Vikings. I think it'll be better this week. I'm worried about Richardson in a tough matchup against the Steelers, but I still go Richardson over Geno. And then down here for the flex, I think we're probably going to end up going ahead and taking Roma Dunze with the injuries to Joe Mixon, injury to Puka Nacua, injury to A.J. Brown, and injury to Tua impacting Jalen Waddle. But let's go over and answer this question for Francie. This is Kupp and Jordan Mason versus Lamb and Carson Steele. Very interesting spot. I would love to know what everybody has to say about this in the live chat. Can y'all please go to the live chat right now and spam what side would you prefer? Kupp and Jordan Mason or Lamb and Carson Steele? And as you do that, I'm going to run real quick. I'll be back in a second. Okay, we are back. I am sorry about that. Looking at the live chat right now, we have Lamb, Kupp, Kupp, Kupp. I agree. I think that Lamb is better than Kupp rest of season. I think it primarily comes down to if you're expecting that Jordan Mason is a running back one with no CMC here for quite some time. So if that is a concern that you have, then I completely understand thinking that, oh, okay, you can go ahead and you can take Mason for the short-term production to get Kupp for the long-term upside. But yeah, honestly, I'd probably just go ahead and when in doubt, we take the best player in the deal. Let's go CeeDee Lamb. Okay. Now, for us to get to the next batch of questions, we're probably going to have to do this team review real quick. So let's get this going for Big Body Benz. This is one of those free team reviews through flockfantasy.com. Going to be excited to check this out for you, my guy. Says, hey, Mason, trying to figure out how a trade I can do so I can get some space for waiver wire moves. Do you see any potential trades? We're currently 3-0 to start the season. What are some weaknesses and strengths of the team? And love the content you put out every day. Thank you for helping. No, thank you so much for being a member of the flock. And real quick, my guy, we are dominating the rest of the league. There is us and this other team hitting rugs. And then outside of that, everybody else is in a much worse situation than we are. Looking at our current squad, we have Anthony Richardson at QB, which obviously hasn't been great. I do think Richardson's going to be a little bit better going into the future. I just traded for him with Sal in the Flock League. So I'm really hoping Anthony Richardson's going to be better in the future. I'm definitely very much worried about this week going up against the Steelers. That's for damn sure. But anyway, going over to what we have at running back, we have the anchor RB here with Saquon Barkley. We have the Jordan Mason as a short-term play. We're about to get Jonathan Brooks in. I think Zach Moss is somebody that we can play every single week as well. We have Warren Keaton Mitchell potentially here for some long-term upside. Going over to wide receiver, we have two top 10 options with Chase and Neighbors. We have Ayuk as a great potential flex play. We have Deontay, we have Worthy, we have Thomas, we have Lockett. So 100%, I think we can say a couple different things. With this team where you only have two wide receivers and one flex spots, the ideal is for us to go out and for us to upgrade over Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Here, quarterback is going to make up a high percentage of our starting lineup output from a week-to-week. I'm not going to say week-to-week perspective. I'm going to cut myself off there. But quarterback is going to make up a very high percentage of our starting lineup output with these league settings. And if we were able to potentially go through and if we were able to potentially, say, sell the combo of Deontay Johnson and Anthony Richardson to pivot over and get that quarterback like Lamar Jackson, it's an absolute no-brainer if a team needs a wide receiver depth piece because we have so many of these receivers, we don't necessarily even really need to look to them. I mean, this team, perfect example. We send them Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's immediately a must-start player for them. They have Mahomes and Jaden Daniels. So if we can send them Deontay Johnson and a Rich to go get a quarterback upgrade here, I definitely think that would be something that would be very advantageous in this league. Another thing that we could look to do is as we are getting Jonathan Brooks back in this next week and we have all the running back depth in the world, Jordan Mason isn't necessarily somebody that we need. So if you could find a league mate that really needs some help at running back, like let's go ahead and let's look at this team. This team is starting Pollard and DeAndre Swift. If you could potentially sell them Jordan Mason and one of our receivers like Xavier Worthy and potentially get up to Tyreek, that'd be an absolute no-brainer. Obviously, much, much easier said than done. This team over here has the CMC injury. They're starting Braylon Allen and Tajay Spears. The issue is they probably don't have enough value for us to actually look at. This team has A.J. Brown. They're starting Najee, Brian Robinson, Charbonnet. So if you want to potentially send them, say Jordan Mason and a super deep receiver for A.J. Brown, I think you can afford that as well. Just because you are in such a comfortable spot, not only with the top end talent that we have, but also at the same time, the situation in which we have the running back depth being added to the team with Jonathan Brooks potentially next week. But really do appreciate you and really hope that I was able to help you out some way with this, my guy. And yeah, thank you so much for taking advantage of that underdog offer. But let's mark that as complete, and it's not going to load us the next few unless we get back to this. Okay. So this trade question that we have here, it's going to be Brian Thomas, Derrick Henry versus Mike Evans and Javonte Williams. So looking at this from Andrew, going Derrick Henry to Mike Evans is a downgrade. Brian Thomas to Javonte Williams is a downgrade. So I'd rather have the Derrick Henry and Brian Thomas side. And I'm not even a big Derrick Henry guy. So yeah, I think we take Derrick Henry there. But let's go back and let's answer some of these actual team reviews that we skipped over a little earlier. So one of those other teams that took advantage of the underdog offer, Back Mask. Thank you, my guy. Going to be excited to go ahead and check this squad out for you. Let me just do one thing really, really quick. Okay. Okay. Here's what we may end up having to do instead. We're going to leave stream mode. I need to desperately, my main focus at this point is making sure that we can get everybody their answer specifically that asks a start sit question or a trade question. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over to trade start sit. If you are in this live stream right now, please go to the live chat. If you asked a question and let me know what your username on flockfantasy.com is, and we can go ahead and get to your trade start sit question right this second. If you asked a question on flockfantasy.com and you have a start sit question or a trade question, let me know right now. That way we can go ahead and we can answer it. Alex says Jada Tiger 9. All right, let's go ahead and let's get this answered for you. Okay. Real Superman. All right, let's see this. Real Superman, this is going to be a start sit question. Here we are considering Jaden Reed and Khalil Shakir. Looks like Love's going to be good to go. I'm actually really excited about Jaden Reed in the game environment. I think they have to throw the ball a decent amount. And then for the flex, with Bucky Irving banged up, I actually think Rachaad White does become a little bit more appealing here. Even if White has looked very bad over the past few weeks, I think we probably go ahead and we probably take Rachaad White there for you, my guy. Okay. But let's get that answered. And we'll mark that as complete. Okay. Jayway says Killer Kelsey. All right, let's go ahead and let's pull this up for Killer Kelsey. And I'm sorry, I'm just wanting to make sure we get to the start set questions and the trade questions before we get to the roster reviews because the game is about to start. Obviously, we can go ahead and I'm actually probably going to be live streaming all night tonight as well to make sure we can get to as many of the team reviews as possible. Everything that's been submitted today, I'll make sure that we get y'all we'll get you the breakdown today. But Killer Kelsey also got offered Worthy for Dowdle. I would rather have Xavier Worthy over Rico Dowdle. Running back, we're going to go ahead. We're going to play Montgomery, even if Mixon's gone with Akers. And then for the flex spot, I think we go ahead and honestly, we probably play Cam Akers with no Joe Mixon, but I would trade Rico Dowdle for Xavier Worthy, especially if we have the running back depth of Jacobs and David Montgomery. But let's go ahead. Let's mark that complete for Kill It Kelsey. Okay. RC Clips says my username is RC Jeans. All right, let's go ahead and let's pull this up. RC Jeans, see you right here, my guy. Okay. This is a league where we have to start 3 flexes. So there's a decent amount to this. Or are you saying, did you just put everybody in? Okay, so next time you fill this out, my guy, all you have to do is like leave one quarterback slot and then go, I'm considering Love and Geno Smith. And you put them here and then I click it and then it fills it out. And we can send it over to you. In terms of if we're starting 2 wide receivers, all good, my guy, just making sure that we're on the same page for the future. If we're starting 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flexes, Lamb, Adams for sure. Quarterback, we go Jordan Love over Geno Smith, assuming that Love is good to go. But we'll have that clarity by the time you have to make that call because Geno plays on Monday. And then for the flex, you have to play Stephon Diggs over Zach Moss and Juwan Jennings, especially now that you're in a spot in which you have the Tank Dell and Nico Collins injuries, giving the bump up both for giving the bump up for Diggs with the projected target share and an offense that should still be very good. Okay. So I see Dylan out here. I will get to you, Dylan. I think we answered we answered a bunch from you, unless you had some more that we need to look at. So let's go ahead and let's see if we have Dylan here. Yeah, Dylan, I think we already answered yours, my guy. Let's look at Francis. Yeah, looks like Nico Collins maybe. Yeah, Nico Collins popped up with a hamstring today. But looking at this for Francis, please make sure that this is the right one. But anyway, we have Etienne and Judy versus Ramadre and Calvin Ridley. Here, I would rather have Etienne over Ramadre pretty easily rest of season. In terms of Jerry Judy versus Calvin Ridley, I don't think it's a big enough gap to really sway me here. I'm going to go with Travis Etienne. And that if you're looking at Etienne, you at least see a path for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense to be better than what it has been. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know if we are in a spot in which we can say that you have a path for the New England Patriots to be improving. I'm very worried that the Pats have kind of capped out here a bit. Okay, let's get this next one going for Dustin. It's a start-sit question here. This is at wide receiver. We are choosing between Keenan, Higgins, Pittman, Pickens, Addison. So looking at wide receiver, Keenan should be good to go. I think, honestly, I'd probably go with Higgins. He should be in an offense that has the most passing volume out of any player here. Obviously, Pickens will have a higher percentage of his passing offense. But still, we're going to go Etienne over Charbonnet under the assumption that Walker is good to go. Quarterback, we play Anthony Richardson QB1, then Sam Darnold QB2. And then for the flex spot, I probably go George Pickens in a full PPR formats. And yeah, definitely play the 2 quarterbacks. You don't play any of these options over them in the Superflex. And if Daniel Jones is available to be picked up, I actually wouldn't mind picking up Daniel Jones and rostering a 3rd quarterback here and potentially letting go of Jordan Addison in that instance. But if, obviously, you have no Kenneth Walker, then you pivot from George Pickens to Zach Charbonnet with confidence as well. But let's go ahead and get the next one going for, I believe, Walk Goblin, which is a very interesting name. Okay. Actually, I see one from Dylan here. Dylan was asking earlier. This is it. I'm assuming, Dylan. This is Olave versus Debo and Moss. We actually looked at this a little earlier. I would definitely prefer Debo and Moss over Chris Olave. I think Debo and Olave are very close for me in the long term. Debo is actually back at practice this week. And then Zach Moss, pretty much a free RB2 here. So, yeah, we're going to go Debo Samuel and Zach Moss. Okay. Now, let's move this over. Okay. Alex says Jada Tiger. My bad. All right, let's go and see if we can find that. And then we need to get one going for Walk Goblin as well. Okay. Actually, I see Muhammad's first, and Muhammad's in the chat. I'm just going to see whatever I see first, to be honest. It says, start one running back between these three. Also, JSN or Amari this week. Thanks, Mason. No, thank you, my guy. Next time, just make sure we're on the same page. All you have to do is put one running back empty slot and then put the three guys that you're considering underneath. I definitely don't start Dowdle over these two players. If you have no Kareem Hunt, I go Carson Steele. If Kareem Hunt does play, I go with Jerome Ford. So it does depend on Kareem Hunt's status, which, does anybody have an updated status on Hunt here? Kind of assuming that Kareem Hunt is going to be active, but obviously I could be wrong. So we saw Jada Tiger in the chat, so let's go ahead and let's get this start sit question going. Here we are choosing at wide receiver. I think you have to play Tyreek Hill, even with Tyreek in this offense being horrible last week. We're going to go London as well. I think the Atlanta Falcons offense going into better matchups will be very exciting. We're going to go Burrow over A-Rich. I think you can make an argument in a 4-point passing touchdown format that A-Rich still has a ton of rushing upside long term, but it's a horrible matchup against Pitt. And then for the flex between Amari, Pickens, Debo, Brian Thomas, Spears, we're not interested in any of the running backs here. And we're really just going to probably be locking in Amari Cooper. The only instance in which we don't is if they tell us like tomorrow, hey, Debo Samuel is 100% good to go. Then if Debo is 100%, then we can go Debo over Amari. But, I mean, even if it's like a game time decision where they go, oh, yeah, Debo is going to be fine, then I honestly don't even know if we love Debo in that instance. Because you're probably in a spot in which, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a receiver that could see a smaller role overall until he is fully healthy. Okay, but let's check out the chats. User Jake Kranz. Let's see. Jake Kranz, I got you. This is a trade question here. This is Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Love versus Roshan Daniels and David Montgomery. So Love to Daniels, we get that upgrade. Gibbs to Montgomery, massive downgrade. We pick up Roshan for free. I would rather keep the best player in the deal. I think the best player in the deal is Jahmyr Gibbs here. Obviously, Jaden Daniels looks like an elite level QB at this point, but still. I mean, Gibbs, I am projecting out as a mid RB1 rest of season. Okay. So let's see. And let me just get back to these questions. I told Walk Goblin we'd get to his question earlier, so let's make sure we are pulling that up real quick. Walk. I actually do not see your question in here right now. Maybe we need to get through some more for it to load. Or maybe we already answered it. I do not know, but let's make sure we can just... Jesse, for team reviews, we are going to be waiting just for 1 second. We're just trying to get all the start sit questions done right now before the game starts. Opposite XO. Here's a start sit question that we can't answer. Okay. So moving over to this is Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, locked and loaded, top 10 receivers, nothing to talk about there. David Njoku probably need to stream, probably need to pick up a tight end. I think Parkinson's not the worst option in the world if you don't have Frymuth or Komet available on the waiver wire. Going over to the 4 flex spots we have. I play Waddle over Dowdle and Leggett. We're going to go Dowdle over Leggett, though. And if maybe you accidentally made a mistake and we don't start 4 flexes, how I rank these flex options for us is Jerome Ford. Actually, yeah, probably Ford, Waddle, Ridley, then Dowdle. But not super excited to play Dowdle tonight. But obviously, also, quick side note, we've actually put Dowdle in there, running back, and Dowdle in there at RB, and move like HN down to the flex just in case anything happens on Monday night and we potentially need a pivot. Okay. So let's move this over. I believe we saw CMAC O in the chat earlier. Okay, here's one. We got Dyson Day. This is a trade question. This is DJ Moore versus Bucky Irving and Jaden Reed. So obviously with Reed, I think he's a very interesting buy low candidate with Jordan Love coming back in. But honestly, DJ Moore is averaging about 10 targets a game so far through the first 3 weeks. Bucky is still kind of just operating as that premium handcuff back. So I'm going to go ahead. I will take the best player. We will take DJ Moore here. Maybe if it's a league where you're very desperate for the overall depth that you have, there you can make an argument instead and just go ahead and pick up Bucky Irving. Like if you really needed a desperation play at running back. Okay. So let's move this over. And yes, Walk Goblin, it was actually under your email. It was not under your YouTube name. This is a trade question from Walk Goblin here. This is Evans versus Rome, Dell, or Jawan Jennings. So looking at this, I think we're probably going to go ahead and take the Rome, and actually, I don't know. What does the league say? This is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. We can't see what the rest of the roster is. Can you please let me know in the live chat, Walk, what's the context behind this? If this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, you make a strong argument to just take the best player with Mike Evans. But it does seem like, I mean, Rome has the ceiling to be Evans this year. You know, like I think honestly the raw value, like if you threw this on the trade calculator on the site, it's probably the Rome, Dell, and Jawan Jennings side. If it's a single flex format, we want to go with the best player. But if it's a deep league at all, picking up the additional starters, I think does make sense. Okay. And we have DK and Flowers as well. Yeah, if you think Evans is the best player in that deal, I think you can go ahead and get Mike Evans. Okay. Now let's see. This next one's going to be out from FPC 26. This is Jamison, Montgomery, Bucky Irving, Dalton Kincaid on one side, likely Breece Javonte on the other. This is Breece Hall by a mile. Downgrade from Kincaid to likely, downgrade from Montgomery to Javonte, but we get Breece Hall. I mean, this is, yeah, this you're trading 4 quarters for $1 and a couple dimes. Yeah, Breece Hall is by far and away the best player in the deal. Please, please, please go Breece Hall. Okay. Now let's move this back. And of course, you can ask any questions you want through flockfantasy.com. We're going to be live streaming super late tonight after the game as well, answering as many of these questions as we possibly can. But let's see if we have one from Adam. Okay. Okay, we're going to look at Rough Gorilla. So Rough Gorilla says we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, Devonta Smith. Should we try to trade a wide receiver for the flex? So, I mean, if we have Malik Neighbors as our wide receiver 4, obviously you're in a situation in which I completely understand pivoting off of an elite receiver for a top end running back. I think with this team in particular, where Malik Neighbors is our wide receiver 4, Devonta Smith is our wide receiver 5, I am okay with us selling Rice for Achane. Under the circumstance, you expect that Tua is going to be back, and you expect that, yet again, this will be a top 10 offense in the NFL. If you don't think Tua is coming back, then we have no business going out there and trading for Achane at that kind of cost. But under the context where we have the best wide receiver room in the league by a mile, I think you can go ahead and you can make that trade if you really wanted to. But like I said, if you have a start sit question or if you have a trade question that was submitted on flockfantasy.com that you need answered before the game tonight, please let me know your username in the live stream right now. So Slidham coming out with this trade question. Slidham's trade question is Terry McLaurin and Jordan Mason for A.J. Brown. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. What's our running back room currently? Our running back room, we have Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane. So Jordan Mason is an RB3 for us. We have other elite pieces such as Jamar Chase, Trey McBride, Deebo Samuel with this team. So if this is a team that you are like 3-0 and we can look for the long-term upside here, we probably go ahead and we take A.J. Brown. On the other hand, if this is a squad that you're like, hey man, I'm 1-2, I really need points in right now, then obviously it'd be much tougher to do this. But A.J. Brown, I'm still projecting out as that mid-wide receiver 1 once he is back. And I'd expect that he probably misses this week. But then after this week, he goes into the bye week in week 5, which is good timing. And then you're going to go ahead and see him come back week 6 and should be good to go rest of season. Okay. Let's move this over. Our next one's coming out from I think we had somebody in the chat say that they were real Superman earlier, unless I'm mistaken. But as I try to pull this up, of course, I will reiterate, like I said, you can always ask whatever question you want through flockfantasy.com. We're going to be getting to a ton of full-blown team reviews, especially after the game tonight. And if you wanted to get your team reviewed for free through the site, the best way to do that is taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, on top of that, you'll be getting the free Dak Prescott pick for tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard, and the free Patrick Mahomes pick for the Sunday game, more than less than half a total yard for Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, make sure you take advantage of that with the link in the live chat. If you wanted the free team review on flockfantasy.com, just set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you have on Underdog Fantasy. That way we can accredit you. But what we probably should do here is, I know we intentionally, but we did skip over Braden's team. This is Back Mask. They were looking for this for quite some time. It says, just how am I doing in general and any trades I can make to get some more running back value so I don't have to sweat out every week with Ramadre. So we actually read this earlier. I don't think we answered it. But anyway, this is Braden's team took advantage of the free Underdog offer. Of course, looking at the league analyzer, I'm sorry, my guy, for whatever reason, it's loading in the wrong one. Maybe we can go back and it will load in the correct one. Dear God, Braden, if you were in this live chat right now, please let me know if you changed your username or you changed your team's name. So it looks like the team's name may have been changed. We can obviously look for the team that has Ramadre Stevenson. let's go ahead and... Okay, Teresa said his name's Waller. Teresa, you are a lifesaver. Thank you. I don't even see that team name here. Did he change it again? Oh, he did change his name. He said so earlier. Never mind. I thought you said he changed his name to Wallier. So we're just going to assume that he is the Ramondre Stevenson team, right? He's the Ramondre Stevenson team. He changed his name. It's anyone want Mark Andrews ? So here, quarterback, we are elite. We have Josh Allen. Obviously, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. Don't need to start and don't need to roster anybody else. Allen doesn't have the bye week until week 14. You're good to go. Start him every single week. Going over to running back, we are currently sitting with Breece Hall at the top as our RB1. Here, I understand that maybe you don't love starting Ramondre Stevenson as your RB2. Trust me, I'm in the same spot. I have to do it as well in my league. It freaking sucks. But with that being said, you actually do have the ability to pivot over to Jonathan Brooks very, very soon, where with Brooks, he's coming back either next week or the week after. We have the upside as well with Carson Steele and Braylon Allen, so we have plenty of running back depth. Going over to wide receiver, this is a league where we can actually start 4 wide receivers from a week. I'm not going to say it. We can start 4 wide receivers every week. And going over to the depth, this is where things get a little questionable. Completely fine with Harrison, my wide receiver 1. Completely fine Ayuk as our wide receiver 2. But Jalen Waddle takes a hit with the Tua injury. Tank Dell now dealing with his own injury. Calvin Ridley seems like he's maybe getting scaled out just a little bit in Tennessee. His workload's not crazy. He's averaging like 6 targets a game. So the wide receiver depth maybe here is a little bit shaky at the beginning part of, at least for weeks 4, 5, 6. Obviously, long-term, when we have Dell fully good to go, when Brian Thomas Jr. is in a spot where he is a comfortable start for us every single week, when Tua is back in, then this wide receiver room at that point is absolutely crushing. Tight end, we have Andrews, Cole Kmet. So tight end, I think, honestly, I'd start Andrews. I know everybody in the chat earlier said that they would rather have Kmet. I think Andrews will be better going into the future. Obviously, better starting at at how bad he is isn't saying a lot. But overall, I think you have a great team. We're the 3rd team with the league analyzer here. It's a very well-constructed roster. I think we start Juwan Jennings in one of the flex spots this week, assuming that we have no Debo or no Kittle. And then beyond that, if we're looking to do anything else here, what can we do? The thing is, in this 10-team league, I'd love to sell a wide receiver depth piece to go get an upgrade over Ramondre Stevenson, but can't sell Dell now. He's hurt. Nobody's buying Tua. Nobody's buying Waddle with the Tua injury. The depth pieces like Ayuk actually matter a lot for this squad currently. So I hate to say this, but this is a team where you sit on your hands. This team will get better as time goes on. We'll get Brooks added back in. We'll get Tank Dell added back in. We'll have Tua helping Jalen Waddle out. We'll have the rookie and Brian Thomas Jr. probably becoming more appealing. So I actually probably leave this team as is, my guy, as much as I hate to say it. And I think instead you're probably in a spot in which, we just work the waiver wire. If you can sell Juwan Jennings and Carson Steele in a 2-for-1 deal, or Juwan Jennings and Ramondre Stevenson in a 2-for-1 deal and go get a running back upgrade, go pivot to Kenneth Walker, we do it in a heartbeat, but I just honestly think that's probably very, very unlikely here. But yeah, thank you again for being a member of the flock. I'm sorry that it took us so long to get to your team review. And yeah, for anybody who has a team review on the site right now, I'm going to be probably actually running through and sending a lot of team reviews during the game. I'll be watching a game on one monitor, doing team reviews on the other. So I'll probably be doing an unlisted YouTube live stream over the next 3 or so hours. But I do appreciate y'all. I really hope that we were able to help y'all out. For Adam, just let me know in the live chat right now, what is your question? Adam and Silas, what are y'all's questions? I know somebody was saying go to the completed question, and I asked another. I'm not going to completed questions to try to find one and check the chat. But if you have, Adam, just drop it in the live chat right now. Let me know. Flo says Singletary most likely goes nuclear against the Dallas run defense. Yeah, phenomenal matchup for Singletary. If you have Singletary, I want it false. you to go ahead and put him in. Okay. Slippery Gecko says Kelsey or Jake Ferguson in a full PPR format. I probably go Ferguson over Kelsey. Ferguson has the target volume. And of course, I do want to reiterate, we will be answering all questions through flockfantasy.com. You can submit them anytime you want. If you wanted that full-blown roster review, all you got to do is go and take advantage of that offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. The links in the live chat, links in the description, links in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK gets you that free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard. Gets you a free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard. A 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And that free team review on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your account on Underdog. Okay. I can't see Adam in the chat asking anything. Okay. Essentially, it's Dowdle, Irving, or Greg Dortch. We're going to go ahead. We're going to start Rico Dowdle. The Bucky Irving is banged up. It does look like he's going to be starting, but I don't know if we are. I'm sorry, Bucky Irving is going to be playing, but I don't know if we're excited to play him. Just go ahead and play Dowdle, but I want to remind you, of course, since he plays tonight, throw him at RB2 and not in the flex spot. But I really do appreciate y'all. Probably going to be calling this live stream here, and we will be streaming very, very soon, right after the game. So hope I can hang out with you then. But thank you again for everything. Hopefully we have a good game.